Chapter 1447. As Glenn spoke, he looked at Yun Jian with a probing gaze. As he spoke, Glenn had a cruel smile on his face, as if he already knew something incredible. It was a pity that Yun Jian did not fall for it. When she was slaying God, the top secret agent in the international ranking, Yun Jian did not mention that she was an old friend of Glenn's. At most, it was Glenn who invited Yun Jian to his base and stood behind her with his head bowed like a pug. That was the truth. If Glenn knew Yun Jian's identity, he would not have spoken to her in such a tone. Glenn was just putting on an act. Glenn's appearance had frightened everyone present. And Zhengliang, Blackie, and the rest were shocked that Yun Jian could see Glenn hiding in the corner. At the same time, they were shocked by what Glenn said. He said that Yun Jian looked like the top international secret agent, slaying God? That was an extremely terrifying existence. Even as Interpol, they did not dare to come into contact with that existence. Good Yun Jian was the only one who knew that Glenn's suspicion was right. Yun Jian was slaying God. Cut the crap. Let's do it. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She did not say anything else but said directly to Glenn. What an interesting young lady. Glenn smiled. His smile was more seductive than anyone else's. Glenn, you're old now. You might be able to live a few more years if you smile less. Stop beating around the bush. Just do it if you have the guts. Yun Jian shouted, provoking Glenn. That was the truth. Yun Jian was provoking Glenn by saying that. You. Glenn was angered by Yun Jian's words. Then he rolled his eyes and felt that he had heard Yun Jian say that somewhere before. Just as Glenn was trying to recall where he had heard Yun Jian say that, Blackie's voice rang again with a member of the criminal police force from Country H who was also from Country H. What should we do? What should we do? She actually went to provoke Glenn. Doesn't she know we're in Glenn's headquarters? She was so arrogant just because she had the ability. She didn't even let me scold her. I really don't like her, ah. These words were said very softly, as if she was afraid that Glenn would hear her. Moreover, Black Sister and this member of the criminal police brigade who came from Country H with her spoke in their own country's language, Country H. People from H and Z looked almost the same. It was said that dating back to a long time ago, people from H and Z had the same ancestors. However, H country's language was completely different from Chinese. The reason why Miss Blackie spoke to the member of the criminal police brigade from Country H with her in the language of Country H was that she didn't want Yun Jian to understand what she meant. To put it bluntly, Hei Mei completely thought that Yun Jian couldn't speak H language, so she was so bold to say this in front of Yun Jian. Yun Jian raised her eyebrows. She didn't turn around to look at Miss Blackie, let alone pay attention to her. Instead, she pretended that she really couldn't speak H language. This way, Miss Blackie even more wantonly complained about Yun Jian in H language to the member of the criminal police brigade who came from Country H with her. Just as Miss Blackie was getting more and more excited, Glenn suddenly exclaimed. He looked at Yun Jian and asked loudly, his pupils constricting, "What did you say just now?" "What you said just now is exactly the same as what slaying God said to me back then. Could it be that you're—" Glenn's sudden words made everyone's pupils constrict. However, at this moment, a loud sound of a helicopter came from above Glenn's headquarters. In the next second, a tall and handsome figure jumped down from the helicopter that was flying 7 to 8 meters high. The man who suddenly appeared was so handsome that everyone's eyes lit up the moment he appeared. Chapter 1448. After CE jumped down from the helicopter that was about 7 to 8 meters in the air, he stopped his momentum and straightened his body. He suddenly appeared, and the helicopter suddenly flew over, so everyone present was surprised. However, Yun Jian was not one of them. Yun Jian was only slightly surprised. Why was he here again? Although that was what she thought, Yun Jian's heart was still warm when she saw CE always appearing when she was in danger. Even Glenn was shocked when he saw CE's sudden appearance. He then looked at CE from head to toe. Everyone turned to look at the man who had jumped down from the helicopter that was about 7 to 8 meters in the air. CE looked at Glenn with eyes as sharp as a hawk's after he jumped down. This glance caused Glenn to tremble slightly. Glenn had been in the black market for decades. This was the first time he had felt the sharp gaze of a man in his 20s. His entire body involuntarily trembled for a while. However, CE's thin lips moved. He looked at Glenn with his sharp black eyes and said bluntly, "Glenn, the boss of the European and American underground black market. Who are you?" CE had already seen Yun Jian. However, he did not walk over to her directly this time. Instead, he looked at Glenn. Glenn initially thought that other than slaying God, who was ranked first on the international secret agent ranking, he would not lose his imposing manner in this world. However, he did not expect that today not only did a young lady appear and attack his imposing manner, but now there was also a man who had such an imposing manner that he could not even speak. Glenn took a deep breath and replied to CE, "That's right, I'm Glenn. You are. Who I am is not important. What's important is that because of what you've done, your position as the boss of the European and American underground black market is gone," CE said coldly. Yun Jian saw that CE did not come over, so she walked over to CE. The people standing beside Yun Jian were stunned. Who was this man? What right did he have to say that Glenn's position as the boss of the European and American underground black market was gone? Just as he was thinking this, Yun Jian was already standing in front of Glenn. Seeing Yun Jian walk over, CE leaned to the side and reached out to grab Yun Jian's hand. What are you? Why do you say that my identity is gone?" Glenn didn't believe it and shouted. Xiao Jian. Gu Junjian came to Yun Jian and CE and called out softly, looking at Yun Jian and CE. "Oh Gu, do you know this man?" Yu Xiaoluo glanced at CE and walked over with the others. "This is my daughter's man," Gu Junjian said proudly. With CE around, Gu Junjian was not worried at all. CE and Yun Jian were capable people. Once they heard that such a handsome man was Yun Jian's man, the people standing beside Gu Junjian looked over. Black Girl's gaze was drawn to CE the moment she saw him. Glenn saw that the people standing in front of him were no longer afraid of him, especially after what CE said. He was infuriated. In the next second he growled into the dark, "Come out! Catch them! Catch all of them!" Glenn was still in the mood to tease Yun Jian just now, but he was only left with rage now. Glenn's men, who were originally hiding in the dark, only waited for Glenn's order to come out with machine guns on their shoulders. Despite Glenn's roar, there was no movement in the dark at all. "Where are they? Where are they? Come out, all of you!" Glenn was panicking now. No matter how capable Glenn was when he was young, he was old now and his ability was not what it used to be. If it were not for the group of powerful guards, he was at most a good-for-nothing. Chapter 1449. The words "and Hun organization" struck a chord in everyone's heart. Everyone was stunned by the deadly words. At this moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on the tall and handsome man. CE's words struck fear into everyone's heart. "And Hun organization." Even Glenn, who was still panicking about his men's whereabouts, lost his voice and screamed. Shock, fear, all of these emotions surged into Glenn's heart at that moment. Glenn was not an ordinary person. He was the boss of Europe and America's underground black market. He was the symbol of the underground forces in Europe and America. Yu Xiaoluo and the rest who were standing in front were shocked when they heard Glenn's scream. This man, or rather Gu Yunjian's son-in-law, was related to the Hun organization? Moreover, he could mobilize the Hun organization to fight Glenn just because of this? This meant that CE was not an ordinary member of the Inhun organization. If that was the case, could it be that CE was, you're the boss of the Inhun organization. She's the #1 international secret agent, slaying God. Glenn was smart. He immediately identified CE and Yun Jian. Inhun organization's boss? He's the boss of the Inhun organization. And Yun Jian is the #1 international secret agent, slaying God. How is this possible? This is impossible. Blackie's pupils dilated in disbelief. She was so shocked that she shrieked on the spot. Blackie did not think of this at all. Even Gu Yunjian's eyes flickered. What do you mean impossible? Do you think I don't know slaying God? Her every move can't be imitated by outsiders. Every time she appears, it's a different face. And the Inhun organization. Do you think anyone can start a war with the Inhun organization just because they want to? Only the boss of the Inhun organization can command the entire Inhun organization. Don't think I can't tell. Glenn knew that he would not be able to escape death. Slaying God, the top international secret agent ranking, and the leader of Inhun were both here. It would be a miracle if he could survive. The day he stood in this position, Glenn knew that he would have this day. But before he died, he wanted to put Yun Jian and CE in a difficult position, especially this group of criminal police officers. They probably didn't know. In fact, their most wanted criminals were the two people in front of them. Since you destroyed me, then I won't let you have it easy either. Glenn, don't know anything else in this life, but I'm good at judging people. Every word and action of slaying God matched perfectly with this young lady. She was not slaying God. Bullshit. Glenn was going to say something more. Before Glenn could finish, however, he was shot in his vitals by the muzzle of a silver pistol that CE pulled out, killing him instantly. On the way, Glenn didn't even have the chance to react. The reason Glenn was able to become the boss of Europe and America's underground black market was because he had a capable assistant named Kennerson. Kennerson's ability was comparable to the third on the international secret agent ranking. However, Inhun had no shortage of powerful people like CE. Any one of the 4 leaders of Inhun could kill Kennerson in a second. Therefore, Glenn would definitely die today. Yun Jian, Yu Xiaoluo and the rest had yet to recover from the shock that Glenn had brought to them. Before they could react, Yun Jian and CE came forward swiftly and knocked them out before they could react. Mu Ying and Gu Junjian were not among those who were knocked out. Yun Jian only stopped after Yu Xiaoluo, Sister Blackie and the rest drank Qin Yu's secret 3-hour amnesia liquid. They could not have their memories because Yun Jian still needed to live in Country Z in the military academy. The fewer people who knew about her and CE's identities, the better. It was fortunate that Qin Yu's secret 3-hour amnesia liquid allowed one to forget 3 hours of memories painlessly without any side effects. Xiaojian, what did you feed them? Gu Junjian asked with his mouth agape. Amnesia liquid. They'll forget everything that happened in the past 3 hours, Yun Jian explained. After Yun Jian's explanation, CE continued to speak to Gu Junjian. As a member of Interpol, father-in-law, you should be eager to eliminate the forces of Europe and America's underground black market. Now that the underground black market has been completely eradicated, you can report back to Interpol directly. CE paused before he continued to speak to Gu Junjian with a curvature. This is my first gift to you, father-in-law. I only want Xiaojian. The way he addressed CE as his father-in-law was smooth. As he spoke, he tightened his grip on Yun Jian's hand in front of Gu Junjian. Yun Jian's cheeks blushed. Dad can't see anything. Dad's eyesight is getting worse. Young lady, let's take a walk over there. It's cooler there. Yun Jian waited for Lu Fian at the entrance of a coffee shop where they had agreed to meet. After waiting for about half a minute, Lu Fian, who was carrying a small backpack, hurriedly ran over. There was another girl beside Lu Fian. Phew, almost late, haha. Lu Fian chuckled and studied Yun Jian from head to toe before telling her, Xiao Jian, you haven't gotten tanner after a month of military training. Your skin is so good. Lu Fian chortled and introduced the friend beside her to Yun Jian. This is a friend I made in the new school. Her name is Wang Cancan. She has good taste and can help you pick out a birthday present for your mom. Lu Fian introduced Yun Jian as she spoke. Wang Cancan was a friendly girl. After introducing herself to Yun Jian, she struck up a conversation with Yun Jian. Although Wang Cancan looked innocent, she was a tough woman in her bones and yearned for a superhuman life. A girl like her got along well with Yun Jian. She was generous and did not fuss over minor matters. Let's go to the mall later to buy a birthday present. It's a newly opened mall and there's a lot of stuff inside. There's also a tour of the most exciting and terrifying haunted houses in the country. I heard that Fatty Wong Ergo and the others from our class are scared out of their wits even though they're so brave. Haha, let's go take a look if we have time after buying our birthday presents, okay? Wang Kankan asked Lu Fian and Yun Jian generously. If Lu Fian and Yun Jian declined, she would not mention it again. Wang Kankan was not one to fuss over trivial matters. Yun Jian recalled what Wang Kankan said. Chen Sini had mentioned the haunted house before and said that she wanted to go. Chapter 1451. Then let's hurry over. Let's take a taxi from here. The mall is quite far from here. Wang Kankan was pleasantly surprised when she heard that. She was carrying a bear cub satchel that matched Lu Fian's. She immediately pinched the bear cub satchel that she was carrying and said excitedly to Lu Fian and Yun Jian. Lu Fian had a bear cub satchel that looked almost the same as Wang Kankan's. This satchel was very small and the workmanship of the satchel was very exquisite. In addition, Lu Fian and Wang Kankan were both wearing small skirts that matched the satchel very well. Both of their figures were quite good and looked like clothes hangers. Coupled with this tight satchel, they were simply beautiful. Wang Kankan stood on the road and hailed a taxi. Then she, Lu Fian, and Yun Jian sat in the back seat of the taxi. As soon as they got into the car, Wang Kankan had no intention of alienating Yun Jian. She whispered to Lu Fian and Yun Jian. Although she was separated from Yun Jian by Lu Fian, she still said to Yun Jian through Lu Fian, "Trust me. Today I'll definitely help you choose a gift that your mother will love." Ah. This satchel matches our outfits very well, right? I chose this. Hee. Wang Kankan didn't mean anything else. Yun Jian and Lu Fian hadn't seen each other for a long time. Similarly, Lu Fian would definitely have a new circle of friends. Like today when Lu Fian and Yun Jian met, but brought along her high school classmate and friend, Yun Jian was in a very awkward situation. In a group of 3, there would always be one person who would be awkward, and that person was none other than Yun Jian. Wang Kankan had experienced this feeling of being ridiculed before. She really couldn't bring herself to continue chatting with Lu Fian and then ridicule Yun Jian. It's very beautiful. I trust your judgment. Yun Jian smiled back. Along the way the 3 of them kept discussing their school life. In fact, Yun Jian was the one who listened. Wang Kankan and Lu Fian kept chatting. Then as they talked they asked Yun Jian a question. When Lu Fian mentioned to Wang Kankan that Yun Jian was studying in the military academy, Wang Kankan's eyes lit up as he looked at Yun Jian. Wang Kankan wanted to be a superwoman. The moment she heard that Yun Jian was studying at a military academy, she was so excited that she stepped past Lu Fian and grabbed Yun Jian's hand. Yun Jian, I've always admired soldiers who protect our country. Especially a girl like you who actually chose to go to a military school. I feel that this requires perseverance and courage. It's a very admirable move. Wang Kankan's actions made Yun Jian smile softly, and she replied with 2 sentences. However, just as he said that, the taxi driver's words were heard. We've arrived at the dynamic shopping center. The 3 little sisters can get off now. After paying the fare and alighting, Wang Kankan brought Yun Jian and Lu Fian to a milk tea shop in the dynamic shopping center to buy milk tea. I took a look. The haunted house is in the basement of the dynamic shopping center. Should we go there first or pick a present for your mom first? Wang Kankan asked Yun Jian from her seat. Let's go to the haunted house first. Xiao Jian, are you okay with that? We don't have to carry the present for Auntie when we enter the haunted house. It'll be bad if we're too scared and break the present. What do you think, Xiao Jian? Lu Fian asked for Yun Jian's permission. I'm fine with anything. Yun Jian was not picky. Just as Yun Jian said that, one of the teenagers sitting at the table next to the milk tea shop poked his head over to ask. Hey, are you guys going to the haunted house in the basement of the dynamic shopping center too? I heard that it's super scary. It's the scariest hospital-themed haunted house in the history of the Guinness Book of Records. The haunted house's name is Wuxia Mental Hospital. There's a strict rule there. They say that girls must be accompanied by strong men. You 3 girls might be stopped if you go alone. Sipping the milk tea in her hand, Wang Kankan said to Yun Jian and Lu Fian, are you guys scared? Once I think about how we're going to enter the haunted house, my heart squeezes. Wang Kankan had just finished speaking when she saw Yun Jian acting like it was none of her business. She paused and could not help asking in surprise, what's the matter? Aren't you scared? Zhuochuan Medical Hospital is the scariest hospital-themed haunted house in history. I heard that many people wet their pants inside. Scared? Why should I be scared? Yun Jian looked at Wang Kankan and Lu Fian's nervous and scared faces and was confused. Because this is a haunted house. Little girl, if you're scared, don't hold it in. Scream when you need to. Young people, don't pretend to be calm. Chapter 1453. Even the auntie next to them could not stand it anymore. The auntie was holding the hand of her 12-year-old daughter because it was almost their turn to enter Wuxia Mental Hospital. She was already panicking enough, and now she heard Yun Jian's casual words. The auntie had nowhere to vent her anger, so she used a voice that sounded like a nosy woman to scold Yun Jian. However, Yun Jian ignored her. We meet again. Ah. Ladies, looks like we are quite fated to meet again. When the line started to dwindle, a ruffian male voice came from behind them. The man's voice was ruffian, but Yun Jian could recognize him from the voice. She did not even need to turn to know who the ruffian voice behind her, Lu Fian, and Wang Cancan belonged to. Wasn't this the voice of the man who had tried to flirt with them at the milk tea shop? Zhou Dongxuan looked at Yun Jian's group happily. He did not expect to run into Yun Jian's group again so soon. Regarding the fact that they were about to enter the haunted house, everyone present expressed their fear. However, as a man of honor, Zhou Dongxuan felt like he should act bravely before the girls. Especially in such a scary haunted house, if the girls were scared, they might even crawl into his arms. Just the thought of it was enough to make him excited. Therefore, Zhou Dongxuan started to flirt with Yun Jian's group even more. I'm not lying to you. The girls here really don't allow us to enter directly. Wuxia Mental Hospital is different from other haunted houses. It is the scariest haunted house in history with a hospital theme. I heard someone was scared to death here before. Therefore, the girls have to be accompanied by strong men. Zhou Dongxuan was not lying about that. Yun Jian had already seen it from the notice board in the distance. She pursed her lips. Then, can you bring us in with you? Just bring us in and we'll split up once we're inside, Wang Cancan asked Zhou Dongxuan. Sure. We have 5 people here. The 3 of you can form a team and go in. Zhou Dongxuan said generously. At the same time he glanced at Yun Jian. Yun Jian didn't say anything this time. Zhou Dongxuan was the school hunk of Longmen City's No. 2 high school. A guy like him who looked handsome to others was bound to be pursued by girls. For example, the 2 girls who had been following Zhou Dongxuan were Zhou Dongxuan's admirers. However, it was a pity that these 2 girls' looks were very ordinary. Usually, they relied on heavy makeup to support their looks and often mingled with Zhou Dongxuan's group. When walking outside to play, boys like Zhou Dongxuan, who had strong self-esteem, liked to bring 2 girls along at all times, even if they didn't like the girls. They only brought the girls because they could show off in front of the girls at any time. However, Zhou Dongxuan now had better candidates, and that was Yun Jian and the other 2. Not only were Yun Jian and the girls prettier than the 2 girls he brought along, they were also pretty and attractive. It made Zhou Dongxuan want to appear like a hero saving the damsel in distress in the haunted house when the trio wanted to hide under the floorboards out of fear. TSK. Zhou Dongxuan was thrilled just thinking about it, especially showing off that he was not afraid of any ghosts in the haunted house to show off his masculinity. How fun could this be? Zhou Dongxuan was the school hunk of Longmen City's No. 2 high school after all. Although the 2 girls who came with him looked average, they were dressed rather fashionably with heavy makeup. Both of them wanted to attract Zhou Dongxuan's attention, but they did not expect him to invite Yun Jian and the girls. This caused the jealousy of the 2 girls to instantly swell. One of the girls, who had red lips and a thick layer of foundation, said to Zhou Dongxuan in an unconvinced tone, "What are you doing? Dongxuan, why did you invite them to come with us? They look so timid. They'll probably scream once they go in. What if they're too scared to leave the haunted house? They'll drag us down. Wang Qiaoyu, say one more word and you'll leave on your own." Zhou Dongxuan roared at the girl with a dark face. Dongxuan? Wang Qiaoyu was enraged when she heard him. She did not say anything else after that. Soon, it was Yun Jian and the girls' turn to enter the haunted house. The haunted house had a rule that the girls had to be accompanied by strong men. Zhou Dongxuan's group of 5 consisted of 2 girls and 3 guys. The 3 guys could be considered strong men. There were usually 4 to 6 people entering, but Zhou Dongxuan's group, including Yun Jian and the girls, had a total of 8 people. The staff of Wuxia Medical Hospital gave it some thought and agreed. They then distributed 2 sets of tools to Yun Jian and the girls. 2 flashlights and 2 shields. Yun Jian took one of the flashlights. As for the shields, Yun Jian gave them to Lu Fian and Wang Cancan. Just like that, the 8 of them walked into the dark entrance of the haunted house. The haunted house took up 3 floors of basement, and the whole structure was based on the theme of a hospital. Therefore, the moment they stepped in, they could feel a chill coming from inside. Zhou Dongxuan and the others shuddered, and then slowly continued to walk forward. Yun Jian walked lazily like she was taking a stroll in her own backyard. Yun Jian's action shocked Zhou Dongxuan, but it also caused Wang Qiaoyu to grumble, "Haha, stop acting so mysterious. Let's see how long you can last." Just as he finished speaking, a woman covered in blood suddenly stood up from a large bathtub covered in blood in front of everyone. No one expected a woman covered in blood to stand up from the empty bathtub. Chapter 1454. Yun Jian's words shocked the woman who had appeared out of nowhere, who was also the staff member. Usually, when a student of Yun Jian's age suddenly saw a female ghost emerging from the bathtub with blood all over her face, their reaction would have been as intense as Zhou Dongxuan and Wang Qiaoyu's. Even Lu Fian and Wang Kankan, who came with Yun Jian, could not help screaming when they saw the female ghost. One of the main reasons why Wuxia Medical Hospital was so scary was that the staff members acted as ghosts very realistically. The makeup technology turned the workers from normal humans into zombies or zombies. In fact, inside the haunted house, the workers would use the method of zombies to chase after the visitors, giving the visitors the feeling that they were in the haunted house. Wuxia Medical Hospital, Longmen City Station, was a large-scale haunted house that toured the country. There were dozens of medical scenes, abandoned hospitals, gory scenes, and insane doctors, nurses, and directors. Zombies crisscrossed, maze-like routes, terrifying traps, and secret passages. The visitors had to be on high alert during the game because there was no telling when the ghost would appear before them, as zombies were everywhere. The female ghost hiding in the bleeding bathtub was just the beginning. In spite of it, the female ghost hiding in the bathtub was enough to scare everyone to death. Zhou Dongxuan and the other two boys who wanted to show off in front of the girls shrieked like the girls. When Zhou Dongxuan, Wang Qiaoyu, and the rest, including Lu Fian and Wang Kankan, heard that Yun Jian was not afraid of the female ghost's sudden appearance, she even went up to reprimand the ghost for not being scary enough. This immediately eased the tension in the atmosphere. Zhou Dongxuan and the rest, who were scared half to death, just now snapped back to reality. Due to Yun Jian's words, the female ghost, who was disguised as a staff member standing in the bathtub, was stunned. She was completely stunned. After all, which girl who came to a haunted house to play did not scream or panic when she suddenly saw a ghost or hide behind a man to beg for protection? Instead, the ghost stood in front of her and told her that there was not enough blood? How could such makeup skills tell that she was a staff member at once? How was this little girl supposed to act like a little girl? This time, it was the staff member who was acting as a ghost who was taken aback by Yun Jian. Even though they knew that the female ghost standing in the bathtub was a worker in disguise, Zhou Dongxuan, Wang Qiaoyu, and the others were too scared to approach Yun Jian. Lu Fian and Wang Kankan, on the other hand, came to stand beside Yun Jian one after another when they snapped out of it. You're crazy. We came to come to the haunted house to have fun. If you say it like this, it won't be fun anymore." Wang Qiaoyu grabbed Yun Jian's ponytail and screamed. Wang Qiaoyu was already unhappy with Yun Jian, so she found an opportunity to scold Yun Jian. "What are you talking about? What right do you have to criticize Yun Jian? When we came in, I said that we would split up after entering the haunted house. Now you can go in your own group and the three of us will go in a group. Don't walk together." Wang Kankan saw that Wang Qiaoyu was obviously not friendly to Yun Jian, so she shouted at Wang Qiaoyu, Zhou Dongxuan, and the others. Then she pulled Yun Jian and Lu Fian to the side. After taking 2 steps, Zhou Dongxuan urged them to stay. Hey, don't. Let's go together. My classmate didn't do it on purpose. I'll teach her a lesson." Then Zhou Dongxuan turned around and scolded Wang Qiaoyu. This scolding indeed made Wang Qiaoyu shut her mouth, but it made her even angrier at Yun Jian and the other two. Wang Kankan wanted to pull Yun Jian and Lu Fian away, but looking at the darkness ahead and the zombies that could jump out at any time, she paused and followed Zhou Dongxuan. The group of people continued to move forward. On the way, Zhou Dongxuan asked Yun Jian, "Aren't you afraid?" "Why should I be afraid? This level of haunted house is not at the same level as Fujijio Haunted House. Fujijio Haunted House is not scary at all. This level of haunted house can't scare people." Yun Jian said this sentence very calmly. However, these words were very different in the ears of Wang Qiaoyu and the others. Fujijio Haunted House was recognized as the world's most terrifying haunted house. "Have you been to Fujijio Haunted House? Don't talk to us as if you've been everywhere, okay? You make it sound like you've really been to Fujijio Haunted House." Chapter 1455. Wang Qiaoyu did not believe that Yun Jian had been to Fujijio Haunted House. After all, it was widely acknowledged as the scariest haunted house in the world. Generally, to explore a large-scale haunted house like Fujiji Haunted House, not only did one need wealth, but more importantly, courage. Perhaps Sichuan Medical Hospital was scary enough and was widely acknowledged as the scariest mobile haunted house, but it was mobile after all. The setting was improvised. Fujiji Haunted House, however, was different. Fujiji Haunted House used an abandoned local hospital as its backdrop, but the difference was that Fujiji Haunted House had chosen an abandoned hospital as its backdrop. Furthermore, the theme of the haunted house was also a hospital, so the illusion created in real life was naturally different from Saga Hospital, which was a makeshift hospital. There were people who were scared to death in Fujiji Haunted House every year, but many were willing to sign up for the adventure. Putting aside whether Yun Jian dared to go or not, Fujiji Haunted House was located overseas after all, and Yun Jian did not look like a rich person at all. That was why Zhang Qiaoyu dared to speak to Yun Jian in such a tone just now. It doesn't matter if I've been there or not. What's important is that I know now that you've definitely not been there. Yun Jian held the flashlight in the dark, her lips curling into a mocking smirk. Yun Jian's words were profound, and if one listened carefully, was she not implying that Wang Qiaoyu was ignorant? Wang Qiaoyu was the kind of girl who didn't take her studies seriously in school. She hung out with a group of hooligans in society and hung out with boys all day long. She smoked and drank and felt that she was special, as if she was the only one in the world who was the best. Therefore, once Yun Jian said that, Wang Qiaoyu spat in anger. Do you have a death wish? Do you know who I am? My brother works for Longmin City's top mafia group, Falcon Hall. He's in the underworld. You'd better know your place. Otherwise, I'll teach you a lesson. Wang Qiaoyu threatened Yun Jian right away. Wang Qiaoyu's brother was not her biological brother. It could be said that he was just a brother she recognized in the underworld. This kind of familial relationship was very popular among Wang Qiaoyu's group. Wang Qiaoyu, I won't invite you to play with us anymore. Zhou Dongxuan yelled at Wang Qiaoyu before Yun Jian could reply. He had finally managed to persuade Yun Jian and the others to stay with them. In the end, with Wang Qiaoyu's provocation, what if Yun Jian and the others refused to leave with them? After Wang Qiaoyu was yelled at by Zhou Dongxuan, she immediately shut her mouth. Wang Qiaoyu wanted to pursue Zhou Dongxuan, so Zhou Dongxuan's words were fatal to her. In spite of it, Wang Qiaoyu loathed Yun Jian even more. At this time they had already walked a long way and arrived at a new theme room. The new theme room was a morgue. As soon as they arrived, Wang Qiaoyu and the others who were still talking, immediately tensed up and didn't dare to go forward. Even though he knew that this was a haunted house, he was still afraid. 3 beds appeared in front of everyone. There were 3 people lying on the beds and each of them was covered with a white cloth. The surrounding background was painted with horrifying images. Just the torchlight alone was enough to send chills down one's spine. The group stopped in their tracks in fright, not daring to go forward. Because no one knew what was lying on the 3 beds. In addition, there was no light here, so they could only rely on the torchlight to illuminate their surroundings. Go. Go, go, go. Follow me, follow me. Zhou Dongxuan said in a trembling voice. He looked to the side and told Yun Jian, don't be scared, just follow me. She was gone when he turned around. She. Wang Qiaoyu's exclamation came from the side. Chapter 1456. Normal girls dared not linger in a haunted house's morgue for too long. Some girls would even clutch their boyfriend's clothes tightly and bury their heads in their boyfriend's arms, crying coquettishly, it's too scary. Sob, 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 I don't want to come to this haunted house anymore. What about Yun Jian? Zhou Dongxuan, Wang Qiaoyu, and the others did not even dare to move forward out of fear, but Yun Jian was different. She walked over and lifted the white cloth without a word. Usually, the scariest thing when passing by a morgue was the 3 beds where the corpses, under the white cloth suddenly came alive. The sense of terror tugged at everyone's heartstrings, enough to scare them out of their wits. Not only was Yun Jian unafraid, she walked over and lifted the white cloth herself. This scene caused Wang Qiaoyu to let out a loud, ah. Even Zhou Dongxuan's face fell from the shock. What lay under the white cloth was a crazed zombie. It was obvious that any living ghost in a haunted house was disguised by the staff. In spite of it, this zombie's disguise was surprisingly realistic. Not only was the makeup realistic, the face was as pale as a dead person's and its eyes were bulging. Just looking at it was enough to send chills down one's spine. What was even scarier was that it was growling like a zombie. Zombie. It's a zombie? Wang Qiaoyu was so scared that she clutched her dress tightly. She took 2 steps back and almost fell onto Zhou Dongxuan. The moment Yun Jian lifted the white cloth, the zombie lunged at Yun Jian and growled in terror. Even Zhou Dongxuan was pale from fright. His foot froze on the spot, even his plan to save the damsel in distress was tossed to the back of his mind. Xiaojian. Lu Fian and Wang Cancan, on the other hand, forgot that they were in a haunted house after Lu Fian's shout. Perhaps it was because the zombies' acting was too realistic. The two of them did not think twice and rushed towards Yun Jian, trying to save Yun Jian. That zombie was obviously a staff member in disguise, but it was so realistic that everyone present believed that it was a real zombie. At least, Lu Fian and Wang Cancan really thought they had seen a ghost. They had forgotten that they were inside a haunted house and were focused on saving Yun Jian. Seeing this, Yun Jian only slightly narrowed her eyes. Be careful. Zhou Dongxuan really wanted to rush up and save the damsel in distress, but he didn't dare. It was as if his foot was fixed in place with glue, and he couldn't lift it up. He could only blame this zombie for being too realistic. He even felt scared when he looked directly at this zombie, not to mention rushing up to save the damsel in distress. The series of events happened in a short 5 seconds. Far away where everyone could see, just as Yun Jian lifted the white cloth, the zombie pounced on Yun Jian. The scene shocked everyone present. Even the visitors who bought tickets were stopped. Damn, that's so cruel. What the hell is going on? Hey, you don't know. I have first-hand news here. I heard that a young girl just gave the staff of Wuxia Mental Hospital a huge scare. A few of the staff members who were acting as ghosts even complained that the ghosts they were acting as were too unrealistic and were severely criticized. In the end, the staff refused to work and all of them said that they wanted to go on strike. My God, which family is this young girl from? She's so fierce. That's so scary. People are scared half to death when they enter a haunted house, but she scared the ghosts so much that they refused to work. Chapter 1458. Perhaps because this was such a rare occurrence, it had already spread among the customers in the cafe. The discussion was endless and they all shared the same topic. A teenage girl had just entered Wuxia Mental Hospital, and she had scared the workers who were dressed up as ghosts into going on strike. Now, even the customers who had bought tickets could not enter Wuxia Mental Hospital because the workers had gone on strike. Without the workers acting as ghosts or zombies, even if the visitors entered the haunted house, they would not be able to experience the real terror. If more visitors entered the haunted house, Wuxia Mental Hospital's reputation would be ruined. Therefore, they decided to temporarily close the haunted house. After all, Wuxia Mental Hospital was a world-famous haunted house, and protecting its reputation was more important than losing a few hundred visitors' ticket money. The chatter of the people around her drifted into Yun Jian's ears without missing a word. In response, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly. At this time, Wang Cancan was holding a cup of tea. She slowly put the cup of espresso to her lips and took a sip. Hearing the discussion around her, Wang Cancan spat out the coffee in her mouth. Thankfully, just as the coffee was about to spill, Wang Cancan lowered her head in time, and the mouthful of coffee only landed on the floor. What are the people talking about? The person they were talking about who scared the ghost half to death was none other than Yun Jian. That person was none other than Yun Jian. Other than Yun Jian, who else could it be? Wang Cancan instantly stood up from his seat in shock, looking as if he had seen a ghost. The person they're talking about is not little. Lu Fian was about to say Yun Jian's name when an unfriendly voice came from behind her. Lu Fian? Wang Cancan. Ah, so it's you two cowards? A loud voice came from behind. It was a woman's voice. Her tone was very unfriendly, as if LV Fian and Wang Cancan owed her millions of dollars. Suddenly, LV Fian and Wang Cancan heard a familiar voice and turned around to look at the person standing behind them. Yun Jian was sitting opposite LV Fian and Wang Cancan, so she could clearly see the appearance of the girl standing behind LV Fian and Wang Cancan. She was a girl with delicate features. She had a small face, big eyes and a straight nose. No matter how you looked at her, her facial features were very three-dimensional. Just by looking at this kind of girl, one would think that she was a good girl. But how could one expect such a beautiful girl to say such unkind words? This made Yun Jian raise her eyebrows slightly. Chenlime? Why are you here? Wang Cancan turned around. When she saw the girl's face, she couldn't help but cry out in shock. Why can't I be here when you're here? Last week, you said you were going to Wuxia Mental Hospital to play. Chapter 1460. Just as Chenlime was questioning Yun Jian's ability, Zhou Dongxuan's voice suddenly rang out from the haunted house with Yun Jian's group. Hearing this, Yun Jian raised her eyebrows slightly. Chenlime saw that Yun Jian did not refute her immediately, so she thought that Yun Jian had nothing to say. Yun Jian was afraid of entering the haunted house. There was no mistake about that. However, Chen Limei had miscalculated, completely miscalculated. When Zhou Dongxuan's voice rang out, Chen Limei was still confused. What's going on? What happened? Who startled the staff? Now the workers at the haunted house refused to work? Yun Jian? Could Yun Jian be referring to her? Before this, Chen Limei did not know that Yun Jian's name was Yun Jian because no one had introduced her to Chen Limei. Following the voice, Chen Limei's eyes slowly moved from Zhou Dongxuan, who had suddenly appeared, to Yun Jian. Shock, and fear were on the verge of erupting. What scared the workers at the haunted house? What is this? When Chen Limei saw Zhou Dongxuan, who had suddenly appeared, and the group of people behind him, she muttered softly. Chen Limei had a bad feeling because she saw the people around the coffee shop turn their eyes to Yun Jian after hearing Zhou Dongxuan mention Yun Jian. All of them widened their eyes and looked as if they had seen a ghost. TSK, isn't it just a small matter? Is there a need to make such a big fuss? She is Yun Jian. Humph, she scared the workers at Zhuchuan Mental Hospital away, and now the haunted house is not open. There are also a bunch of visitors who came from afar waiting to enter the haunted house. This is all Yun Jian's fault. Humph, I knew she was a troublemaker who came out to harm people. How disgusting. Zhang Qiaoyu had been unhappy with Yun Jian since the beginning, and now it was even worse. He had just convinced Zhou Dongxuan not to look for Yun Jian, but now? When Zhou Dongxuan got out of the haunted house just now and heard that the staff were quitting and were about to go on strike because of Yun Jian, he started looking for her everywhere like a rabid dog. As a result, Zhang Qiaoyu disliked Yun Jian even more. Seeing that Chen Limei was asking about what had happened just now, Zhang Qiaoyu was the first to stand up and say it. Her tone was strange and she said it purely to make Chen Limei hate Yun Jian. Chen Limei had just said that Yun Jian was too cowardly to even go to a haunted house. Hearing Wang Qiaoyu's words, Chen Limei felt nothing but shock and fear. What? She actually entered a haunted house and scared the workers to the point that they went on strike? Are you joking? Isn't Zhuchuan Medical Hospital the scariest themed hospital in the history of the Guinness Book of Records? How could she be the one who scared the workers to the point that they went on strike? Shouldn't it be the workers disguised as ghosts who scared her to death? Chen Limei was already rooted to the spot, looking no different from an idiot who was in a daze. The people around the coffee shop were stunned as well, especially those who were gossiping about Yun Jian just now. Wang Qiaoyu did not expect that not only did her words fail to make Yun Jian hated, the people around her were instead in an uproar about her capabilities. Wang Qiaoyu was annoyed. She was about to speak when she saw a man in torn pants and a trendy golden top that looked like it could blind one's eyes coming in. The man was in his early 20s but his hair was dyed a golden mohawk that was so bright it could blind one's eyes. Wang Qiaoyu's eyes shone when she saw the man. She quickly waved at the man and called out, "Brother!" This was her brother, the one who worked under Longmen City's top mafia group, Falcon Hall. He was also Wang Qiaoyu's pride. Chapter 1461. Wang Qiaoyu felt that even the breath coming out of her nostrils had become noble. Wang Qiaoyu raised the phone in her hand up high and raised her hand at the man who had just entered the cafe. She shook the phone in her hand twice. "Brother, I'm here." With this shout, everyone in the coffee shop looked over. Feeling this kind of attention, Wang Qiaoyu was not shy at all. Instead, she raised her eyes and looked at the man with a golden mohawk hairstyle very proudly. The man with the golden mohawk hairstyle walked like a hooligan. Every step he took made him look like a hooligan teasing a beauty. Anyone who saw him would want to beat him up. "Sister Qiaoyu, why did you call me out?" The man with the mohawk hairstyle looked high and mighty. He glanced at Wang Qiaoyu and asked smugly. At that time, the man with the mohawk hairstyle still had his hands in his pockets, as if there was no one more powerful than him in the world. Yun Jian sat where she was. When she heard Wang Qiaoyu call him brother, she recalled how Wang Qiaoyu had bragged about how her brother worked for Falcon Hall at the haunted house. She would find time to visit Falcon Hall, but she did not care much now because Su Zetian was very capable. Falcon Hall was now the #1 gang in Jia province, and the boss of the former #1 gang in Jia province, Han Biao, was supporting Su Zetian. Therefore Yun Jian was really a hands-off boss now. Perhaps it was because the man with the mohawk whom Wang Qiaoyu called brother was from Falcon Hall. Yun Jian glanced up at him. "Humph, brother, you have no idea. Someone bullied me at the haunted house just now." Wang Qiaoyu's mouth was full of nonsense. "Who bullied my sister Qiaoyu? Come out now." In this day and age, people with some power had a habit of feeling superior. The man with the mohawk hairstyle looked at Wang Qiaoyu and shouted. It's her, it's her. It's her who bullied me. Brother, you have to stand up for me. Use your status to suppress her properly. It's best if you scare her to death. Wang Qiaoyu and the man with the mohawk hair kept calling each other brother and sister. Their words were undoubtedly directed at Yun Jian. She's the one who bullied you, right? Alright, Sister Qiaoyu, this brother will definitely help you get revenge for this. The last sentence was stuck in his throat just like that. When the mohawk man saw Yun Jian's exquisite and beautiful face, his entire person froze on the spot. What a beautiful girl. What a beautiful girl. The man with the mohawk's hair almost drooled. He didn't even hear Wang Qiaoyu calling him brother a few times. Zhang Zhudi? It was only when Wang Qiaoyu shouted his full name that the man with the mohawk finally reacted. The man with the mohawk hair, who was Zhang Zhudi, reacted in a daze. Brother, she bullied me. Wang Qiaoyu deliberately used a coquettish voice to speak to Zhang Zhudi, as if she wanted to draw Zhang Zhudi's attention back. However, Zhang Zhudi's eyes were already fixed on Yun Jian. When he responded to Wang Qiaoyu, his voice was very perfunctory. Oh. You're from Falcon Hall? Yun Jian's red lips curved slightly. She looked at Zhang Zhudi and asked under everyone's gaze. Yes. Zhang Zhudi was as loud as he was when he first entered the door. Now that Yun Jian asked him, he quickly responded. As he spoke, Zhang Zhudi's aura rose slightly. As long as he said that he was from Falcon Hall, Zhang Zhudi would feel a deep sense of pride. Who do you work under? What's your serial number? What's your superior's serial number? In the next second, everyone saw Yun Jian's slightly raised red arc suddenly relax. She suddenly asked this question with a cold face. Hearing this, everyone was stunned and at a loss for what to do. What did Yun Jian mean by that? However, Zhang Zhudi was the only one who suddenly came back to his senses when he heard Yun Jian's words. In front of everyone, he turned pale with fright and asked Yun Jian instead. Chapter 1462. Zhang Zhudi asked loudly. As he spoke, Zhang Zhudi's expression changed from a lustful one at the beginning to a tense one at the moment. Just like the Kosha mercenaries, Falcon Hall had started to give each member a number. Every member of the Kosha mercenaries had a number. The first was Yun Jian, who was ranked according to her strength, battle record, and contribution. Yun Jian had numbered Falcon Hall a while ago, and it was based on these aspects as well. Falcon Hall did not have a rule that forbade its members from revealing their numbers to outsiders. However, most of the members with lower numbers were unwilling to talk about it. Only those with higher numbers were willing to talk about it. In spite of it, those who were numbered closer to the front were usually mature and reliable. The candidates were usually handpicked by Yun Jian or Su Zetian because the number at the front meant that they were Falcon Hall's elders. Therefore, this created a phenomenon where those with higher numbers would not brag about it, while those with lower numbers would not be able to brag about it. Therefore, outsiders did not know that Falcon Hall had started to give out numbers. Wang Qiaoyu had wanted to scold Yun Jian when she heard Yun Jian's nonsense. However, Zhang Zhudi was really shocked after hearing Yun Jian's words. Not only did Zhang Zhudi's face turn pale, he even asked Yun Jian how she knew that the members of Falcon Hall had a number. Brother, why are you yelling at her? Falcon Hall has a number? Why haven't I heard you mention it before? Wang Qiaoyu only spoke to Zhang Zhudi after she came back to her senses. Zhang Zhu mentioned everything to her, especially bragging about it. Back then, the reason why Wang Qiaoyu recognized Zhang Zhudi as her brother was because Zhang Zhudi boasted that he could push himself up to the sky. In the end, Wang Qiaoyu really thought that Zhang Zhudi was so powerful, so she couldn't wait to call Zhang Zhudi brother. Wang Qiaoyu had heard all the bragging from Zhang Zhudi, but she had never heard of any number. That was why Wang Qiaoyu had asked. Yun Jian, Lu Fian, and Wang Kankan were still sitting in their seats. At this moment, Yun Jian was coldly looking at Zhang Zhudi. Zhang Zhudi was at a loss. How could there be such a thing? What serial number? I don't know. Zhang Zhudi realized that he had lost control of himself just now, so he tried to explain himself. Needless to say, Zhang Zhudi's number was definitely at the back. The image that he had erected in front of Wang Qiaoyu was that he was omnipotent. There was nothing that he couldn't do. If he reported his serial number, then his image would be **T. Actually, he was just an errand boy in Falcon Hall. Before Zhang Zhudi could finish, he was interrupted by Yun Jian again. She looked at Zhang Zhudi and said in an unfriendly tone, Falcon Hall has assigned a number to every member. It's impossible for any of them to be missed. Chapter 1463. Zhang Zhudi was already shocked when he heard Yun Jian say his serial number. After all, How was Yun Jian supposed to find out his serial number if he did not say it out loud? Only the higher-ups of Falcon Hall would be able to find a person's serial number by using their name to check their serial number. Zhang Zhudi had never considered whether Yun Jian was one of the higher-ups. That was because Yun Jian's age was simply unbelievable. In spite of it, Yun Jian had recited his serial number accurately. This was even more legendary than a mythical movie. Even so, Zhang Zhudi did not think that Yun Jian was one of the higher-ups. Not to mention the boss of Falcon Hall. T. Yun Jian was the boss of Falcon Hall? This was even more unbelievable than a fish cooking itself. Therefore, when he heard that Yun Jian was also a member of Falcon Hall, Zhang Zhudi reflexively asked Yun Jian what her serial number was. In Falcon Hall, serial numbers represented a person's status. There were members of Falcon Hall in the entire Zhe province, and there were more than 100,000 of them in total. It was a large number, but it was not particularly outstanding when compared to the entire Zhe province. Zhang Zhudi himself was one of the bottom few. He asked Yun Jian what her serial number was because he thought that Yun Jian's ranking was definitely lower than his. How could a girl like her have a high-ranking serial number? However, when he heard Yun Jian's serial number, Zhang Zhudi was dumbfounded. What did you say? What's serial number 1? Zhang Zhudi thought that there was a long string of numbers behind it that he did not hear clearly, so he moved his ears closer to listen. The people around them were all confused and looked like they did not know what was going on. However, they could still understand what Yun Jian and Zhang Zhudi were talking about. I'll only say this once. Please get out of my sight now because you're an eyesore. Yun Jian curled her lips coldly and said very calmly. At this point, she turned her head and ignored everyone present. She said to Lu Fian and Wang Kankan, "There are too many mosquitoes here. It's annoying. Let's go." Lu Fian and Wang Kankan didn't want to stay here any longer, so they stood up as well. The reason why Wang Kankan didn't want to stay here was entirely because she didn't want to see her senior Duan Ming and Chen Limei being intimate with each other. Hey, Wang Kankan, are you leaving just like that? Don't you want to see senior Duan Ming anymore? Senior Duan Ming went to the bathroom and will be here soon. Chen Limei saw that Wang Kankan wanted to turn around and leave just like that, so she opened her mouth to urge him to stay. Everyone knew that Chen Limei was up to no good. Even though she knew that Wang Kankan liked senior Duan Ming, Chen Limei still wanted to ask him to stay. She wanted Wang Kankan to see that senior Duan Ming was close to her, Chen Limei. Wang Kankan knew that Chen Limei had ulterior motives, but he couldn't help but stop. Yun Jian's eyes turned sharp for a moment. At this moment, a tall and handsome youth walked in from the main entrance. This kind of youth was the most popular among girls, so the moment he walked in, he received the deep gazes of the people around him. The young man was the senior Duan Ming that Chen Limei and Wang Kankan were thinking about, and at this moment, Duan Ming was walking over. When he saw Wang Kankan, Duan Ming didn't even believe his own eyes for a moment. The Wang Kankan today was completely different from when she was wearing her school uniform and pants at school. The Wang Kankan today was extremely beautiful. Duan Ming was originally walking towards Chen Limei, but he stopped halfway and turned to look at Wang Kankan. He opened his mouth and said, "You are Wang Kankan, right? I remember seeing you at school. You're dressed very beautifully today." Just as he was thinking about this, Zhang Zhudi, who was standing at the side, seemed to have suddenly thought of something incredible. He shouted at Yun Jian, and the words that came out of his mouth caused everyone present to be flabbergasted. "I remember. I'm up." San Guanzi once said that the boss of our Falcon Hall was a woman. She didn't seem to be an adult yet and looked to be in her teens. She couldn't be you. The reason why he gave her an apron was because Wang Kankan heard from Yun Jian that Qin Yiru was currently working in a flower shop. When working in a flower shop, Qin Yiru would usually use an apron, because wearing an apron when trimming flowers and plants would not dirty her clothes. Although the flower shop had its own apron, the apron that his daughter gave him was different from the original apron of the flower shop. Furthermore, Qin Yiru did not lack anything right now, so giving her a birthday gift was also a kind gesture. Yun Jian listened to Wang Kankan and chose an apron that was more suitable for Qin Yiru's temperament. She even found someone to wrap it up in 3 layers. This was the first time Yun Jian had bought a gift and wrapped it up in 3 layers. "I owe you a favor. If you have anything in the future, you can ask me. I can help you within the scope of the conditions." Yun Jian said to Wang Kankan with one hand holding the gift. Helping her choose a birthday gift for Qin Yiru was a great kindness to Yun Jian. This was because she didn't know what to give. She had never done this before. "We're friends from now on. There's no need to be like this between friends, haha." Wang Kankan was very generous as he spoke to Yun Jian. Chapter 1465. Wang Kankan was ready to go home because she was going shopping with her senior, Duan Ming, tonight. She was extremely excited. LV Fian did not return to Xinjiang town. She stayed in school during the weekends, sometimes returning home once every 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes once a month. She did not go back every week because it was inconvenient. This was similar to Yunyi back then. When Yun Jian was reborn, Yunyi was studying in Longmen City while Qin Yiru and Yun Jian were both in Xinjiang town. Yunyi often returned home once every 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes once a month. It was costly and time-consuming to take the bus home from the city. She would then stay for a day or two at home before taking the bus back to school from the town. It was troublesome, so students who usually stayed in the town would not be too hard-working when they returned home. After Wang Kankan left, Lu Fian also went back to school to review her homework. Lu Fian's school would be holding the monthly exam in about 10 days. As someone who had relied on her own hard work to get to where she was today, Lu Fian naturally had to review and prepare for the exam. Yun Jian was taking a taxi to Ding Ding Bar from the shopping mall with the gift she bought for Qin Yiru. Ding Ding Bar entrance. The bar was newly opened and its business was booming. It was also near the shopping mall. Others might not know that Ding Ding Bar was one of the properties under Falcon Hall. Yun Jian had an appointment with Su Ziqian here. It had been a long time since she asked about Falcon Hall since she went to the military school, so she had to deal with it first when she came back today. Yun Jian stepped into Ding Ding Bar with the gift for Qin Yiru in one hand. It was still daytime, but Ding Ding Bar's recent business boom made the atmosphere inside feel like it was night. When she stepped in, it felt like she had stepped into the night from day. Just as Yun Jian stepped into the bar, she saw a few familiar figures at the bar counter from the corner of her eye. It was Zhou Dongxuan, Wang Qiaoyu, Zhang Zhudi, and the others whom he had met at the haunted house and the coffee shop. Just now, Wang Kankan and Lu Fian had accompanied Yun Jian to buy a birthday present. They had spent some time on the way, so it was not surprising that Zhou Dongxuan, Wang Qiaoyu, and the others had already come out of a place like the Dynamic Mall. It was such a coincidence to bump into them in such a place. Yun Jian was just about to sidestep the few people at the bar and take a detour, but Zhou Dongxuan's eyes lit up. He was the first to notice Yun Jian. "Why are you here?" As he spoke, Wang Qiaoyu, who was beside him, was very unhappy. "Why are you always haunting me? You'll follow us wherever we go. How shameless. As a girl, I think you don't even have the modesty of a girl." Wang Qiaoyu felt that Yun Jian had deliberately followed them, so she immediately yelled at Yun Jian. "Sis Qiaoyu, don't make a ruckus here. This is Falcon Hall's territory. You'll be arrested by them if you shout like this." "Even I can't save you then," Zhang Zhudi told Wang Qiaoyu. Okay, go, I know." Wang Qiaoyu turned to Zhang Zhudi and told him obediently before turning back to whisper to Yun Jian. "I say, don't tell me you're a prostitute here. Hey, you're really shameless." Wang Qiaoyu was about to say something when a middle-aged man walked over from the side. The middle-aged man was Duan Lei. When he came to Yun Jian, he called out respectfully, "Sister Jian, Boss Su has been waiting for you for a long time. Go on in." Yun Jian hummed in acknowledgement and left Wang Qiaoyu, Zhang Zhudi, and the others who were eating like crazy. Zhang Zhudi obviously knew Duan Lei. Looking at him, he asked fearfully, "Elder Duan Lei, could the girl who went in just now be? Could it be? Don't say things you shouldn't say. Who she is isn't something you can know." Duan Lei glanced at Zhang Zhudi and hinted. These words almost caused Zhang Zhudi to cry out in surprise. So she was... Chapter 1466. Zhang Zhudi almost cried out on the spot, but in the end he forcefully suppressed the fear in his heart. When Yun Jian told him her ranking in Falcon Hall, Zhang Zhudi did not believe her at all. After all, Yun Jian's number was too unbelievable. She did not say 1 followed by a series of numbers, but 1, just 1. Falcon Hall's ranking was arranged from the strongest to the weakest, from the beginning to the end. Since Yun Jian said 1, she could only be the boss of Falcon Hall. That was why Zhang Zhudi did not believe that Yun Jian was ranked number 1 in Falcon Hall. But who was Duan Lei? In Falcon Hall, other than the boss, only Su Ziqian could be ranked below him. Then it would be Han Biao, the former leader of Zhe Province's number 1 gang. Then it would be Duan Lei. Who was Duan Lei? His words carried a lot of weight in Falcon Hall. Some time ago, when Su Ziqian was seriously injured after being assassinated, Duan Lei took over Su Ziqian's position and managed Falcon Hall for a long time. In Falcon Hall, Duan Lei was considered an elder. Some time ago, Yun Jian had made a huge adjustment in Falcon Hall. She changed Falcon Hall's management and ranking to that of the kosher mercenaries. Now that a month or two had passed, Falcon Hall was clearly in a better state than before the reorganization. Zhang Zhudi was the only one who knew the fear in his heart. When Duan Lei disappeared from Zhang Zhudi and the others' sight, Wang Qiaoyu's reckless words rang again. She first imitated Duan Lei's tone just now and mocked him, "You're the one who's going to die. Don't say things you shouldn't say. You don't have the right to know who she is." Wang Qiaoyu even shook her body as she imitated Duan Lei's words. Then she laughed out loud and mocked him. "Who does he think he is? I think that woman came to this kind of place to sell herself. She's a prostitute, but she still wants to maintain her chastity. I bet that man just now is her patron. What's there to be proud of? Brother, don't you think so?" As Wang Qiaoyu spoke, she turned to look at Zhang Zhudi. But just as Wang Qiaoyu said this, Zhang Zhudi roared, Right, your sister. Don't come looking for me again. Troublemaker." When Zhang Zhudi thought about how he had almost offended Yun Jian because of Wang Qiaoyu, he was so angry that he almost wanted to slap Wang Qiaoyu. Brother, how can you do this to me because of her?" Wang Qiaoyu knew Zhang Zhudi, but until today she had never seen him so angry. She wanted to stop Zhang Zhudi, who was about to walk to the door, from leaving. She even reached out her hand to stop him, but Zhang Zhudi threw her to the ground. "Get lost. Don't call me brother so intimately. I'm not your biological brother, so don't try to get close to me. You've killed me. Damn it." Zhang Zhudi now even had the heart to kill Wang Qiaoyu. He turned around and roared back at her, then continued to walk forward, intending to leave. "May I ask, can you tell us what happened to make you so agitated all of a sudden? I think we can talk about it slowly after we calm down." When Zhou Dongxuan saw that Yun Jian was involved in this, he was eager to know the reason. "Slowly? What else do we have to talk about? What's there to talk about? Do you know who you've offended?" She's Falcon Hall's boss. That man just now is Falcon Hall's elder, Duan Lei. How can Elder Duan Lei's words be false? Get away from me, all of you. I don't want to see you anymore." Appalling. Zhang Zhudi ran off immediately after that, leaving Zhou Dongxuan, Wang Qiaoyu, and the rest who were dumbfounded. What did Zhang Zhudi say? Yun Jian was Falcon Hall's boss? The terrifying woman who had led Falcon Hall from the top mafia group in Longmen City to the top in Jia province within half a year was her. Chapter 1467. Zhou Dongxuan, Wang Qiaoyu, and the others turned pale when they heard Zhang Zhudi's words. This news was simply too frightening. Yun Jian didn't know about the frightening things that happened here. She also didn't know that Zhou Dongxuan, Wang Qiaoyu, and the others already knew about her identity. Yun Jian habitually bypassed the bar and came to a VIP room. This was the place where she and Su Zetian had arranged to meet. When Yun Jian reached the door of the VIP room and reached out to open the door, a waitress with professional makeup stopped her. "Hello, little girl. This is the VIP room. Do you have a reservation?" The waitress deliberately stood there to wait for someone because she heard that a very important person was coming here today to meet the important person who was already sitting in the room. Therefore, she stood there to serve the important person who was about to arrive. Seeing Yun Jian casually open the door, the waitress thought that Yun Jian was a girl who got lost in the bar. "I made an appointment with the person inside." With that, Yun Jian held the door handle and opened it. Just as she pressed the button and was about to open the door, the waitress stopped Yun Jian's hand. She frowned and forced herself to control her temper. She said to Yun Jian, "Little girl, don't mess around. Little girl, don't mess around. The people here are all big shots. You and I can't afford to offend them. Just go play by yourself. She's the important person who's coming to our bar. You don't have to come to work tomorrow." The waitress was about to stop her when Duan Lei's voice rang out. His words determined the waitress's fate. The little girl in front of her was the important person she was supposed to serve? The waitress was frightened. She hurriedly bowed and apologized to Yun Jian. "I'm sorry. I was blind just now. Don't fire me. I was wrong. Please give me another chance." The waitress was indeed impatient just now. The slight frown on her face was enough to express everything. Yun Jian usually ignored such trivial matters. She opened the door and went in directly. It was up to Duan Lei to decide whether to fire the waitress or not. As soon as she opened the door and entered, she saw Su Zetian sitting in front of her. There were two middle-aged men sitting beside Su Zetian. Of course, Yun Jian didn't come here just to talk to Su Zetian about Falcon Hall's trivial matters. She had something official to deal with. The two middle-aged men were about the same age, but they were at least in their 40s. One of them was the boss of the number 1 gang in the neighboring province near Jia province, He Long. The other was the number 1 gang's number 1. He had a close relationship with. He was the number 1 gang boss of the neighboring province's number 1 gang. No matter who they were both in the underworlds as in the underworld. Today they had specially come from other places to visit the boss of Jia province's number 1 gang, Rakshasa, and had the intention of befriending him. Yun Jian had come here to meet both of them. They were they saw Yunzes. And was. Them saw were worse saw, as the soundproofing in the room was excellent so no one in the room could hear what happened outside. He Long had already stood up. He looked at Yun Jian and opened his mouth. In the end he turned to Su Zetian with a smile. He pointed at Yun Jian and asked, "Brother Su, is this girl your daughter?" Yun Jian was too young. She was more than old enough to be Su Zetian's daughter. Su Zetian laughed when he heard that. He introduced Yun Jian to He Long and Qi Shangjing. The words from Su Zetian's mouth shocked the two men. Chapter 1468. He Long and Qi Shangjing's expressions changed immediately after Su Zetian introduced Yun Jian. What? The little girl standing before them who was a full size younger than them was the boss of Falcon Hall, Rakshasa, whom they were here to visit. The news was so shocking that He Long and Qi Shangjing stood rooted to the ground, unable to react for a long while. Yun Jian was really too young. She was only in her teens, right? She was still underage, right? Was she really the Rakshasa who had only spent half a year to turn Falcon Hall into the number 1 gang in Jia province? Haha, are you surprised? I'm sure that you'll be even more surprised later on. Su Zetian laughed loudly. His admiration for Yun Jian could no longer be described with words. Why are you looking for me? Yun Jian followed Su Zetian's words. As she spoke, she had already walked up to He Long and Qi Shangjing. Yun Jian's every move did not seem like a child's. Instead she seemed much more mature. He Long and Qi Shangjing could not help but look directly at this teenage girl. Ahem. Let me introduce myself first. I'm He Long, the boss of Linyun Gang. He's the second in command of Vast Ocean Gang. I'm from the neighboring province and he's from Gan province. We're here to form an alliance with Falcon Hall. Seeing that Yun Jian was still a teenager, He Long thought that Yun Jian should be young and ignorant. He cast a wide net, thinking that Yun Jian would definitely agree to form an alliance with his gang and Qi Shangjing's gang. After all, Yun Jian was still a child. Someone like her who could lead Falcon Hall to become the number 1 gang in Jia province would definitely want to form an alliance with other gangs. After all, one more friend meant one less enemy. Everyone knew that. Moreover, since Falcon Hall had climbed to its current position, there would definitely be many people waiting for an opportunity to destroy Falcon Hall. After all, Falcon Hall had just become the number 1 gang in a province. As long as Yun Jian was a smart person, she would definitely form an alliance with the number 1 gangs in other provinces to strengthen her position. Therefore, He Long was 90% sure that Yun Jian would agree when he mentioned his intentions in front of Yun Jian. Moreover, she was only a teenage girl. Now that she had climbed to her current position, she would definitely want to keep it. In spite of it, He Long miscalculated. After He Long stated his purpose, Yun Jian rejected him directly. Falcon Hall won't form an alliance with any gangs in any form. Why? He Long asked as he looked at Yun Jian in shock. Yun Jian had already made her way to an empty leather sofa in the room and plopped herself down lazily. Crossing her legs, she narrowed her eyes as a sharp glint flashed across them. Qi Shangjing had the same question as He Long. The sect that He Long and Qi Shangjing were in had the same status as Falcon Hall. They were both the top sects in their respective provinces. Logically speaking, Yun Jian should have agreed to their requests in a hurry. After all, an alliance between the number 1 gangs was beneficial to both parties. Especially a girl like Yun Jian. She was so young. Shouldn't she be inexperienced? With such benefits, shouldn't she have decisively agreed to it? Just as He Long and Qi Shangjing were puzzled, Yun Jian's next words overturned their understanding and shocked them like never before. I only accept gangs that want to join Falcon Hall. Yun Jian paused at this point, then continued arrogantly, of course you can choose not to join me, but I believe that I will forcefully take all of your gangs under my banner in the near future. Arrogant. Arrogant. That was the first impression that Yun Jian gave to He Long and Qi Shangjing. Chapter 1469. Yun Jian's words were more than arrogant. More than arrogant. She was as arrogant as the heavens. Everyone present was stunned by her arrogant words and aura. Even Su Zetian was shaken. Back then Yun Jian had taken away Su Zetian's Dragon Head gang and renamed it Falcon Hall. A long time ago, Su Ziqian had invited Yun Jian to join Dragon Head Gang, but Yun Jian wanted the entire gang. The scene just now overlapped with the one from a long time ago. What did not change was that Yun Jian was still as arrogant as ever. However, she had the right to be so. Dragon Head Gang was the worst gang in Jia Province back then, but under Yun Jian's leadership, it had developed into the top gang in Jia Province today. Back then, Su Ziqian and his brothers had built Dragon Head Gang from scratch. More than anyone else, Su Ziqian hoped that Dragon Head Gang, now known as Falcon Hall, would rise higher and go further than anyone else. In spite of it, becoming the top gang in Longmen City was already the limit in Su Ziqian's hands. In retrospect, Su Ziqian even felt fortunate that he had passed the gang to Yun Jian back then. Otherwise, there was no doubt that it would have been difficult for Dragon Head Gang to maintain its position as Longmen City's top gang, let alone become the top gang in Jia Province. Su Ziqian had experienced it firsthand, hence he chose to believe in Yun Jian. However, He Long and Qi Shangjin were different. Both of them had come here with the intention of forming an alliance. What about Yun Jian? She said no to forming an alliance. That aside, she even wanted to annex all the gangs? That was a fool's dream. Hence, He Long's expression darkened as he warned Yun Jian in a dark tone. Young man, I recognize you as Falcon Hall's boss. You've led Falcon Hall to become the top gang in Jia Province. It wasn't easy and you're quite capable. However, you're still young. You're not as experienced or far-sighted as we are. Don't expect too much at such a young age. Falcon Hall is powerful, but it's not powerful enough to annex all of us. You're so young yet you speak so arrogantly. You must know that there's always someone better out there. One must know when to advance and when to retreat. Don't think too highly of yourself. I'd like to see if we're still no match for a mere Falcon Hall if all of us work together. He Long's expression immediately darkened. Yun Jian had said that one day she would forcefully take all the gangs under her banner. He Long knew that the alliance was definitely not going to work out. Furthermore, Yun Jian had said that she would forcefully take all the gangs under her banner. Wasn't the Lin Yun Association and the Vast Ocean Association among all the gangs? Since Yun Jian had said so, He Long naturally didn't need to be courteous. Shangjin, let's go. After He Long lectured Yun Jian, he angrily turned around and was about to leave with Qi Shangjin. He Long and Qi Shangjin had originally come to discuss an alliance with Yun Jian. Who knew that Yun Jian would be so insensible and even say such arrogant words? Just as He Long and Qi Shangjin reached the door of the private room and were about to reach out to open the door, Yun Jian's faint voice came from behind them. How dare you act so impudently in my territory? Did I allow you to leave? As she spoke, He Long and Qi Shangjin felt a strong murderous intent coming from behind them. The two of them turned around at the same time and saw two curved knives flying toward them. The knives were thrown far away by the person who threw them, but they were sharp enough to make He Long and Qi Shangjin's expressions change. The two of them dodged to the side, barely avoiding the fatal blow from the small knife. However, because their reaction speed was not fast enough, He Long and Qi Shangjin's single-handed arms were ruthlessly cut by the knife, causing them to bleed. When the two of them reacted, their eyes widened as they looked at Yun Jian, who was still sitting on the sofa. Just throwing two knives was enough to injure the two of them. They wouldn't even be able to dodge them. What kind of speed was that? For a moment, He Long and Qi Shangjin's expressions changed drastically. If their senses weren't wrong, Yun Jian hadn't used her full strength. If Yun Jian used her full strength, the two of them might not even be able to survive one of her knives. Chapter 1470. He Long and Qi Shangjin went crazy again, but they left with their tails between their legs. In the end, Yun Jian didn't make things difficult for He Long and Qi Shangjin. After all, He Long represented the number one gang in the neighboring province, while Qi Shangjin represented the number one gang in the entire Gan province. The gangs behind them were on the same level as Falcon Hall, so their status couldn't be underestimated. If Yun Jian really killed the two of them, it wouldn't benefit her at all. She wouldn't do something that wouldn't benefit her at all. Seeing the two of them leave the VIP room, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She stood on the spot and said to Su Ziqian, "Send someone to monitor their every move. Send someone to keep an eye on their every move. In at most a year, I want them to be destroyed." In at most a year, she would lead Falcon Hall to take over all the gangs in Country Z. Su Ziqian was in high spirits after hearing Yun Jian's words. He liked Yun Jian's ambition. Yes. Su Ziqian nodded. After walking out of Hotel Ding Ding, Yun Jian went home with the birthday present she bought for Qin Yiru. She first returned to the huge villa that she lived in with Ce. Just as she opened the door, a familiar male scent wafted over. The next second she was hugged by this familiar male scent. Yun Jian wasn't surprised to be hugged by this familiar male scent. She leaned forward and asked, "I thought you couldn't come back? It's mother-in-law's birthday, so of course I have to come back." Si was very tall, so Yun Jian's head could barely reach Si's chin. At this moment, Si reached out and patted Yun Jian's head. "Young master, can we go downstairs now?" Just as Si finished speaking, Shui Ying's shout came from upstairs. Si resisted the urge to slap Shui Ying to death. He reluctantly let go of Yun Jian's body, then shouted from upstairs, "Get down!" Shui Ying walked down innocently with Si Luo following behind him. Si Luo was carefully following behind Shui Ying as they walked down from the second floor. Shui Ying even reached out to stroke Si Luo's shoulder as they walked past the stairs. Si Luo looked up at Shui Ying fearfully. She was afraid that if she didn't follow his instructions, she would be called a dumb girl. Hence, Si Luo hesitated for a long time before reaching out and grabbing Shui Ying's outstretched hand. Then he was carefully led downstairs. "Idiot, hurry up!" Shui Ying shouted again when he saw that Si Luo was hesitating to give him his hand. 5:30 p.m. was Qin Yiru's time to get off work. She was busy at home. Gu Junjian was personally cooking. He was wearing an apron and was still cooking in the kitchen. Everything was set up. Yun Yi, Qin Yu, Shui Ying, Si Luo, Xiao Yunju, Duanli, Duanya, and Mo Senator. Almost everyone who was supposed to be there was there. The doorbell rang at 5:45 p.m. Chapter 1471. Last time, Yun Gang went to gamble again and couldn't pay back the money he owed. At that time, Yun Jin saved Yun Zheng's family, who was innocently implicated. As for Yun Gang's life and death, she didn't care. Yun Jin said a long time ago that after she helped Yun Gang pay back the 5,000 yuan he lost in gambling, his life and death would have nothing to do with her. First of all, Yun Jin wasn't Yun Gang's biological daughter. Yun Gang also didn't fulfill his duty as a father to her. She didn't need to raise Yun Gang as her loving father. Taking a step back, Yun Gang directly abandoned his family and ran away after he lost money in gambling. Later on, he even let his mistress appear and humiliate Qin Yiru. Also, Lu Lanhua told Qin Yiru that it was okay for a man to cheat a little, which left a deep impression on Yun Jian. The moment she opened the door, Lu Lanhua knelt down in front of her. She even knelt on the ground, casually kneeling in front of Gu Yunjian's door. This was a villa area, but even so, there were neighbors nearby who could see the scene of Lu Lanhua kneeling in front of Yun Jian. Let's not talk about why Lu Lanhua was looking for Yun Jian. Just based on the fact that Lu Lanhua chose to kneel in front of Yun Jian at this time and place, she most likely thought that Yun Jian would be too embarrassed to help her into the house, so she knelt down heavily. If it was someone else, perhaps for the sake of face or perhaps because they felt that Lu Lanhua looked pitiful, they would really quickly help Lu Lanhua up. But Yun Jian wouldn't. Last time Ganger's legs were crippled. Now even walking is a problem. Last time that group of people refused to let Ganger go. They even said they wanted to kill him. You're Ganger's biological daughter. How can a biological daughter not care about her father's matters? Save him. Save him, ah. As Lu Lanhua spoke, she tried to use her hands to hold Yun Jian's legs, waiting for Yun Jian to help her up from the ground. This damn girl. Hurry up and help her up. How long would she have to kneel? Lu Lanhua actually wanted to win Yun Jian's sympathy so that she could sit down in the room first. After he sat down, he began to talk about his hardships during this period of time. Then he would ask Gu Junjian or Qin Yiru to take him in. But who would have thought that Yun Jian, that wretched girl, would make her kneel at the door and refuse to let her get up? I've already said that he has nothing to do with me. You don't have to beg me here. Even if you kneel until tomorrow, I won't pity you and let you in. Also, if you continue to pester me endlessly, there's no need for those people to cripple him. I'll go and kill him right now. Yun Jian said it word by word. Today was Qin Yiru's birthday, and Lu Lanhua was using this opportunity to gain sympathy. Yun Jian could not stand it anymore. Fortunately, Qin Yiru had not returned home yet. Otherwise, Qin Yiru would be sad every time she saw the past. After all, no one wanted to recall the unpleasant past. You're trying to kill your father. Oh my God, how can there be such a vicious daughter like you in this world? Lu Lanhua was terrified by what Yun Jian said. After all, she had gotten used to insulting Qin Yiru before they got married, so she could not change her habit now. Thus, it did not take long for Lu Lanhua to revert to her original form. Yun Jian frowned slightly. In the next second, she grabbed Lu Lanhua's collar and dragged her toward the villa's door amidst Lu Lanhua's cries and screams. Hey you! What are you doing? Yunjian Xiaojian, you can't do this to your grandma. I'm your real grandma. I've been good to you before, haven't I? The last scream was when Yun Jian threw Lu Lanhua out of the villa's door. The surrounding neighbors loved to watch a good show. At this time, when they saw that there was such a lively scene, they all gathered around. They saw Yun Jian holding something in her hand and flinging it out of the villa. Then Yun Jian told Lu Lanhua in front of everyone, not afraid of airing her dirty linen in public. Chapter 1472. Yun Jian's words made the neighbors who were watching the show blink. Just as Yun Jian finished speaking, Lu Lanhua simply sat down on the ground and shouted without any hesitation, "Heavens! Is there still any justice in this? She even wants to hit her own grandmother. This is too much. Too much. Everyone come and judge this." As she spoke, Lu Lanhua beat her own feet and shouted like a homeless person. The only difference was that as she beat her own legs, she added fuel to the fire as she told the story. However, she deliberately omitted the vicious way she had treated Yun Jian and Qin Yiru in the past. Her own father's legs are now crippled. But the two of them are great. One remarried to a soldier and is now enjoying life. The other punched and kicked her own grandmother. Is there still any justice in this? Where are the police? Where did the police go? Quickly call the police over to judge this. All of you are here to bully an old woman like me. Bullying an old woman like me who can't walk properly, where is the justice in this? Lu Lanhua saw that more and more neighbors were gathering around Qin Yiru's house, and her shouts became louder and louder. Those who didn't know would really think that after Yun Gang's legs were crippled, Qin Yiru saw that Yun Gang was crippled, then turned around and married Gu Junjian. Yun Jian, on the other hand, stopped her grandmother from entering the house. Before Yun Jian could explain, Lu Lanhua's words had already caused the surrounding crowd to point and gossip. "TSK, I didn't expect Officer G's current wife to be such a woman. I was wondering why Officer Gu suddenly got married after divorcing his ex-wife for so many years. This new wife even has a family to feed. I heard that he married her from a poor village. TSK, I reckon that Officer Gu got married to her because he was set up, right? I think she is an indecent woman herself. She even abandoned her husband who can't walk properly. I think this kind of woman should be drowned in a pig cage." That's right. I didn't expect Qin Yiru to be that kind of person. In the past when he met us he was still fine. Who would have thought that in the end we really don't know his true nature? Whether it was in the countryside or the city, there was no lack of gossipy women. Whenever something happened to a family, these gossipy women would immediately pop out to gossip. These days, whether it was in the countryside or in the countryside, women who abandoned their original husbands and ran away with other men were especially ostracized. What Lu Lanhua said was simply a complete reversal of right and wrong. Lu Lanhua thought that Yun Jian and Qin Yiru wanted to get rid of her and Yun Gang. There was no way. How could his granddaughter really ditch him just because she had become rich and started a company? They are related by blood. Moreover, Yun Jian's legs were broken not long ago. Chapter 1474. Although Yun Yi's words sounded a little extreme, The people around him could tell what he was implying. Lu Lanhua was completely a vicious mother-in-law. In the past she abused her daughter-in-law Qin Yiru. Now that Qin Yiru had married well and her daughter and son were successful, she shamelessly came to ask for money? She was simply a shameless old woman. The gossipy women present were generally women who had experienced fierce battles with their mothers-in-law. Generally, the relationship between mothers-in-law and daughter-in-law was not good, unless the mother-in-law was a very cultured woman who would not be calculative. Therefore, the gossipy women especially hated unreasonable mothers-in-law. And just as Lu Lanhua's image as a vicious mother-in-law was established, the surrounding people who were watching the show began to point at Lu Lanhua. Those gossipy women simply rushed into the house, took all kinds of vegetables and eggs and threw them at Lu Lanhua. The auntie who reached out to help Lu Lanhua had already helped Lu Lanhua up. Now that she heard Yun Yi's words, she directly let go of her hand that was supporting Lu Lanhua. That was not all. The auntie directly pushed Lu Lanhua to the ground again, and then cursed at Lu Lanhua. Great. So the slut is you, old woman. I was wondering, Qin Yiru is usually modest and amiable, how could she become like what you said? Damned old woman, get lost. Get out of here. Your skin is really thick. You actually have the nerve to come here and ask Qin Yiru for money? Get lost. Damned old woman. Get out of our villa district. People like you don't deserve to come here. Similar curses like this were endless. What was more frightening was that these gossipy women even ran home to take all kinds of vegetables and eggs, and ran out to throw them at Lu Lanhua. Great, all of you. Just you wait. All of you are trash. Scum of society. You even want to hit an old woman. See if I don't go to the police station and sue you to death. Lu Lanhua crawled up from the ground in a disheveled manner, brushing away the eggs and vegetables that were thrown at her face as she cursed back at Yun Jian, Yun Yi, and the other gossipy women who were throwing rotten eggs at her. Lu Lanhua was never the kind of old woman who would bow down. She was famous in Xinjiang town for her shrewdness. Of course, Lu Lanhua would not go to the police station to sue them. She was only doing this to find a chance for herself to slip away. As he walked, he continued to run. His face was filled with extreme hatred. It was the appearance of someone who refused to change despite repeated admonitions. Once Lu Lanhua was far away, the people around her, including the gossipy women who had insulted Qin Yiru, came over to apologize to Yun Jian and left. Not long after they left, they came back from the entrance. Came back when they saw Qin's. Xiao Jian, Xiao Yi, what's going on here? Qin Yiru asked curiously when she saw the vegetables scattered on the floor and the egg with its yolk cracked open. A rat tried to steal something but everyone smashed it to death. Mom, let's go home. Yun Jian pulled Qin Yiru's hand and headed home. Yun Jian only gave a brief explanation about the battlefield just now. Qin Yiru had long forgotten that it was her birthday today. She nodded and followed Yun Jian home. The moment she stepped through the door, Qin Yiru saw a variety of dishes on the dining table at home. The variety of dishes was enough to hold a wedding banquet. Qin Yiru was dumbfounded when she saw it. She turned to ask Yun Jian, Xiao Jian, what's the program today? Mom, it's your birthday today. Yun Jian curled her lips into a smile and nodded. So happy birthday, Mom. Qin Yiru was flabbergasted when she heard that. Good Yun Jian had already taken the last big cake out from the kitchen and told Qin Yiru, Honey, happy birthday. This is the first birthday I'm celebrating for you. I'll celebrate your birthday with you every year from now on. When Qin Yiru heard Yun Jian and Gu Yunjian's words, she realized at once that her daughter and husband had given her the cold shoulder in the morning to give her such a big surprise. Chapter 1475. Qin Yuru's mother, happy birthday. Just as Qin Yuru's eyes were turning red, Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya each grabbed a balloon with the words, "Happy Birthday," on it and rushed down the stairs in an orderly manner. With Xiao Yunju taking the lead, the three of them handed the balloons with the handwritten words to Qin Yuru. The words on the balloons were, "Happy Birthday." Qin Yuru's mother, the presents are in the balloons, hee. I was the one who came up with the idea of giving presents. Xiao Yunju took the lead and shook his head. Duanli and Duanya each put their presents in the balloons and handed them to Qin Yuru. Xiao Yunju and the other two had been cooped up in the room since morning and refused to come downstairs for lunch. Qin Yuru had thought it was strange. The three children were usually very obedient, but today they were especially disobedient and refused to come down for lunch. It turned out that Xiao Yunju and the other two had started preparing presents early in the morning and wanted to give her a big surprise now. "Thank you, my babies." Qin Yuru was so touched that she almost cried. She bent down and kissed Xiao Yunju and the other two's foreheads and held the presents tightly in her hands. "Mom, this is mine." Yunjian also wrapped her present in 3 layers and handed it to Qin Yuru. Yunjian had never chosen a present for herself and wrapped it so meticulously before giving it to someone. Of course, this was excluding the clothes that she had bought for Ce. Yunjian glanced at Ce, who was coming down from the 2nd floor. The clothes he was wearing were almost colorless and were about to fall off. She had bought these clothes for him. Ever since he had put them on, he had been alternating between the clothes she had bought for him and had not worn any other clothes. Yunjian was looking at the clothes Ce was wearing and did not look at Ce himself. Ce turned his head and looked over. When he saw Yunjian looking at him, he smiled sinisterly and walked over as well. Even if the clothes were worn to the point of fading, Ce's handsomeness was on full display when he wore them. Ce walked over and grabbed Yunjian's little hand, then walked over to the dining table. After everyone had taken their seats, dinner began as promised. Gu Yunjian's cooking was naturally delicious. Although Gu Yunjian was a soldier, he was good at something. Cooking was one of his specialties. Gu Yunjian's cooking was very delicious. There were fish, prawns, crabs and crabs for dinner. After the bowls and chopsticks were cleared, the whole family sat in the living room and watched TV. Yunjian had just gone out with Qin Yuru to buy some snacks. She had just sat down on the empty sofa when she saw Ce sitting across from her. In the past, Ce would have sat down with Yunjian when he saw her sitting across from him. However, he did not today. Just as she was thinking about this, Xiao Yunju suddenly ran over and stuffed a small piece of paper into Yunjian's hand. He said to Yunjian, "Sister, this is from Ce." With that, Xiao Yunju ran over to Ce and exchanged 3 lollipops. Then he ate them with relish. Yunjian felt like she had been sold. Pressing her lips together, she stopped thinking about it and opened the piece of paper that Ce had asked Xiao Yunju to pass to her. "Xiao Jin, what are you guys passing around so mysteriously? Let Mom see it too," Qin Yuru asked with a smile when she saw the piece of paper in Yunjian's hand. "Mom, it's nothing," Yunjian said as she opened the piece of paper. When she saw Ce's flamboyant handwriting on the paper, however, Yunjian's cheeks flushed as red as a chicken's butt. There was only one sentence written on it. Chapter 1476. Looking at the line, especially when Qin Yuru asked Yunjian to show her Ce's note just now, Yunjian was stunned. Yunjian's cheeks flushed uncontrollably. "Mom, I'm going to the washroom." Yunjian hurriedly slipped away. "A note." Qin Yuru really wanted to see what Ce wrote for her daughter. However, Yunjian didn't give her the chance. She hurriedly walked to the washroom on the 2nd floor. She returned to her room to use the washroom. Gu Yunjian's house was a villa. Every bedroom here had its own washroom. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that something was wrong when Yunjian returned to her room to use the washroom. After all, there was a washroom on the 1st floor. Just as Yunjian finished speaking, Ce, who was sitting on the sofa, stood up and walked towards Yunjian. He even found a brazen excuse for himself. "I'm going to change my clothes." If Shuiying wasn't afraid of being thrown into the Amazon forest by Ce, he would have stood up and ridiculed him. "Young master, you just changed into the clothes that young mistress bought for you. Now you're going to change your clothes again? Bullsh*t. Change into a sweater. To hell with it." Changing clothes was a lie. Running to find young mistress was the real reason. In fact, everyone there had seen it and knew that Ce was spouting nonsense. However, no one exposed him. Yunjian ran upstairs with the paper written by Ce that made her blush. Just as she was about to close the door to her room, a slender hand pressed against the door. She looked up and saw Ce's face that was so handsome it was unreal. Don't come in. I need to use the washroom. Yun Jian didn't want to see Ce at this moment. Hence, she found an excuse to avoid him. She didn't need to use the washroom at all. She just didn't want to see him in such an awkward situation. Then I'll wait for you in the room. Ce didn't wait for Yun Jian to reply. He slipped into the room and closed the door behind him. Ce knew that Yun Jian didn't want to use the washroom at all. Hence, when Yun Jian turned around, Ce hugged her from behind. In a few moves he pressed Yun Jian's chest down and her butt onto the bed. Yun Jian was caught off guard. By the time she reacted, a certain part of Ce's body was already pressed against her butt. Get up. I need to use the washroom. Yun Jian struggled, but Ce didn't let go. The naughty hand hugged her waist from her back and slowly moved upwards. In the end it circled around two plump areas. Xiao Jian, don't move. I'll just hug you. Ce bent down and whispered into Yun Jian's ear. It wasn't the first time he had hugged her anyway. However, Yun Jian clearly felt her bra being pushed up by a hand that grabbed her breasts at close range and squeezed gently. Let go. If you don't, I'll... Yun Jian turned to push Ce away. 3 sneaky voices came from the corridor outside the door. Chapter 1477. The worst part was that Xiao Yunju and the other 2 were already standing outside Yun Jian's bedroom. Yun Jian couldn't even make a sound. If she were to say anything now, Xiao Yunju and the other 2 would hear her. Ce's breath instantly became heavy. He was a righteous young man who had never had sex before. He had never even touched a woman's hand before. This time, the woman he loved was lying in front of him. If he could resist, he might as well change his name to woman. He reached out and hugged Yun Jian. At this moment, Xiao Yunju, who was standing at the bedroom door, spoke again. I'm sure that big brother Ce is in big sister's room. Should we rush in now to catch them in the act or wait for them to come out? I see that the police always rush in to arrest people. Should we rush in too? Duanli suggested. That's impolite. Our teacher said that we can't be so impolite. At this moment, Duanya spoke in a serious tone as if she was reading a book. Her words were especially loud. Xiao Yunju and Duanli spoke softly. They knew that they had to speak softly because big sister and big brother Ce would hear them. However, Duanya was still young, so she spoke loudly. The moment Duanya spoke, Duanli hurriedly covered Duanya's mouth and whispered, Shh. Don't speak so loudly. Big sister and big brother Ce can hear you in the room. In fact, Yun Jian and Ce had heard them a long time ago. Even though Xiao Yunju and the other 2 spoke softly, Yun Jian and Ce could still hear them. Yun Jian's expression darkened when she heard Yunju and the other boys talking about her and Ce as if they were really having an affair behind everyone's back. Xiao Yunju and the other 2 waited outside the door for more than 10 minutes. Ce and Yun Jian maintained the same posture for more than 10 minutes. Ce, who was burning with lust from Yun Jian's teasing just now, calmed down. If it weren't for Xiao Yunju and the other 2 guarding the door, Ce wouldn't have cared that Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian were still awake when Yun Jian accidentally touched his manhood. He probably wouldn't have been able to hold himself back and would have ked Yun Jian. The piece of paper that he had stuffed into Yun Jian's mouth earlier was the best proof of his desire. At this moment, Qin Yiru's voice came from the bedroom door. Xiaozhu, why are the 3 of you standing here? I've already bought the snacks for you. Hurry up and go downstairs to eat. Aha, Mother Qin, we got it. Xiao Yunju and the other 2 acted as if they had been caught doing something naughty. The 3 of them quickly ran downstairs, fighting to be the first to go downstairs. Children were like this, innocent and naive. More than 10 minutes later, Yun Jian and Ce had also tidied up their clothes. Yun Jian even went back and forth to tidy herself up, afraid that something would be discovered when she went downstairs. When Yun Jian went downstairs, Shuang even forcefully pulled Si Luo's hand. Si Luo retracted her hand in fear, but Shuang simply grabbed her hand and stopped her from moving. She didn't know how much Shuang had treated Si Luo during this period of time, but Si Luo didn't dare to resist at all. She pouted and sat where she was, withdrawing her hand. In the end, she had no choice but to let Shuang hold her tightly. When he saw Yun Jian and Ce coming downstairs, Shuang subconsciously asked, why did you guys take half an hour to change in the bathroom? Just as Shuang asked this question, he instantly realized that he had asked the wrong question. He looked up and saw Ce holding Yun Jian's hand with a gloomy expression. Before Ce could say anything, Shuang tried to say something else to ease the awkward atmosphere. The weather is really good today, haha. It was already dark outside. Shuang only realized that it was already dark after he said that. Then Shuang could only laugh awkwardly and add, today I mean the weather is good today, ahem. Just as he finished speaking, Yun Jian's phone rang. Yun Jian took out her phone from her pocket and glanced at it. It was a landline number. Yun Jian didn't know many people and didn't have a phone with her. There was only one person who could call her using a landline number, and that person was Lu Fian. Yun Jian frowned slightly and immediately answered the call. Lu Fian's voice sounded from the other end of the line. Chapter 1478. Wang Cancan was in trouble. After all, she was her friend and had nothing to do with Yun Jian. LV Fian didn't want to trouble Yun Jian, but she had no choice. She usually stayed at school on weekends and had no friends or relatives. Moreover, it was late at night. There were 6 or 7 students in her class who didn't go home on weekends and stayed at school. LV Fian had already asked them for help one by one, but no one was willing to help her. She had no choice but to use the school's landline to call Yun Jian. Today's matter was very important because if they couldn't save Wang Cancan, then Wang Cancan's life would be ruined. LV Fian knew Yun Jian's ability and knew that Yun Jian had the ability to protect herself. Therefore, LV Fian called Yun Jian today to ask for Yun Jian's help. When Yun Jian heard that Wang Cancan was in trouble, she immediately thought of Wang Cancan's friendly face. When Yun Jian was with LV Fian and Wang Cancan didn't completely ignore Yun Jian just because she and LV Fian knew each other. Usually, when the three of them were together, Yun Jian was always the one who was the most embarrassed and easily ignored. However, Wang Cancan didn't ignore her. Of course, the most important thing was that Wang Cancan chose a gift for Qin Yiru for Yun Jian. Qin Yiru liked it very much. She just put on the apron that Yun Jian gave her and said that she must wear it to work tomorrow. Yun Jian had never chosen such a birthday gift for anyone. It was all because of Wang Cancan that Qin Yiru liked her gift. Wang Cancan was very careful when choosing the gift. In order to choose a gift that could make Qin Yiru happy, Wang Cancan even asked Qin Yiru about her hobbies, work and so on. In the end, after careful selection and careful analysis, she came to a conclusion and finally chose to buy an apron. Because Qin Yiru could use it at work and it was very practical. Therefore, Yun Jian had told Wang Cancan that she owed her a favor. As long as it was within the scope of the conditions, Yun Jian would help her. It was time to return Wang Cancan's favor. Yun Jian wanted to go too. Wait for me at school. I'll be right there. Lu Fian nodded while sobbing. She sounded like she was scared out of her wits. After hanging up, Yun Jian turned to look at Ce. Then she looked at Qin Yiru and said, "I'm going out for a while." After that, Yun Jian turned around and walked out. "I'll go with you." Ce wanted to follow her. At this moment, Yun Jian had already walked quickly to the main entrance. Ce followed behind Yun Jian. The two of them stood at the main entrance where Qin Yiru and the others couldn't see. "I'm going with my classmates. It's urgent. Wait for me at home," Yun Jian said to Ce. "I'll go with you." Ce repeated himself like a child. Yun Jian suddenly stood on her tiptoes and moved closer to Ce. She tiptoed and moved closer to Ce. Chapter 1479. When Yun Jian drove to Lu Fian's school gate, she saw that the girl was already waiting for her not too far away. Lu Fian's small and delicate face was scrunched up tightly. Lu Fian was still the same as before. If something happened to her friend, she would not sit idly by. When she had just been reborn, the first person Yun Jian met who helped her in Xinjiang town's toilet was Lu Fian. Lin Mingyu, who went against Yun Jian back then, was the daughter of Xinjiang town's principal, but Lu Fian was not afraid of offending Lin Mingyu. Even if she would be implicated, Lu Fian helped her. Yun Jian liked Lu Fian's personality as her friend. "Get in," Yun Jian said to roll down the window. Lu Fian did not think much about how Yun Jian knew how to drive a car because she was worried about Wang Cancan. She told Yun Jian once she got in. "Xiao Jian, something happened to Cancan. She called me half an hour ago when she was in the toilet and said that Senior Duan Ming wanted to take her to a hotel but she wasn't willing. Senior Duan Ming said that they wouldn't do anything if they went to a hotel, so she agreed. I didn't think much about it at the time because Senior Duan Ming's conduct in school is still decent. I called Cancan later and realized that I couldn't get through to her phone. Just now, a girl who stayed over in our class said that Duan Ming's family was poor, so he often used his good looks to seduce girls. He abducted girls from school to a hotel and contacted some shady young men to sell the girls' virginity. Listen, the girls who were sold were sullied by more than 10 men in one night. The girls didn't dare to speak about it because the men forced them to take drugs and made them addicted to drugs. Some girls were originally good girls, but because they were addicted to drugs, once the drug addiction kicked in, those girls were originally clean and honest girls, but because of this damn drug addiction they even went to nightclubs to sell their bodies. My classmate told me just now that a girl in our school received 5 customers a night because of this. Speaking of this, Lu Fian was already a little scared. At the same time, she hated drug traffickers. Drug traffickers were one of the most detestable people in the world. They only cared about their own profits, but they would do anything to harm other people's families. This kind of scum can only die, Yun Jian said. Then she stepped on the accelerator and went to the hotel that Lu Fian mentioned. Fortunately, Wang Kankan had told Lu Fian about the hotel where he and Senior Duanming had booked a room. Tomorrow Red Hotel. As soon as they entered the hotel, Yun Jian and Lu Fian asked the receptionist for Wang Kankan's specific room and went to the hotel. It was room 319. In the easternmost corner of the 3rd floor. On the easternmost staircase and elevator on the 3rd floor, there was a group of more than 10 people. They seemed to be accomplices. Outside the hotel, Duanming was squatting on the ground with his hands on his head. It was obvious that he had done something bad. Once this is done, you will be rewarded handsomely. A man at the side patted Duanming's head. He did not treat Duanming as a human at all and threw down a large pile of RMB from Duanming's head. Brother Xiong, how long has Mao Doer been in there? When will he be done? We brothers can't wait any longer. One of the men pulled up his pants and asked the man who was throwing money at Duanming. What's the rush? We just went in. Just as the man finished speaking, 2 figures ran up the stairs. Yun Jian and Lu Fian had clearly heard what the man had just said. They were already certain that Wang Kankan was in the hotel. Wang Kankan is inside? Yun Jian walked over to the hotel. Asking this question was just a slip of the tongue from Yun Jian's mouth. Who are you? Seeing that Yun Jian actually knew about Wang Kankan, the man immediately raised his voice. I will only give you 1 second to consider. Hand over Wang Kankan, or else none of you will leave today. All of you will die. Yun Jian glanced at them from the corner of his eyes, his sharp eyes causing the dozen or so people present to be stunned. Chapter 1480. The man, who was called Brother Xiong, casually raised his head and glanced at Yun Jian. Then he raised his eyebrows and whistled. He looked at Yun Jian provocatively and said to Yun Jian in the words of a hooligan, Yo, look, where did this chick come from? She even said she wanted us to die? Where do you want us to die? Brother Xiong rubbed his hands and laughed sneakily. Then he took a big step forward towards Yun Jian. Chick, you delivered yourself to my door. Are you with the one in the room? Why don't you follow us and have a good time? Our skills are awesome. Do you want to try your hands? Brother Xiong rubbed his palms and the back of his hands and laughed sneakily. Brother Xiong was still rubbing his palms and the back of his hands when Yun Jian walked over and kicked Brother Xiong away and walked towards room 319. Yun Jian's kick seemed to be very light, but in fact, it was so strong that Brother Xiong fell down the hotel corridor. With a bang, Brother Xiong fell to the ground and almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Brother Xiong felt that his internal organs were about to be damaged. He covered his heart and only reacted after a long time. When Brother Xiong reacted, he realized that Yun Jian had already walked towards room 319. His dozen or so brothers stared blankly at Yun Jian walking in that direction. At this time, none of them reacted. *CK. This woman was really fierce. What are you guys standing there for? Waiting for the food to be served. Go for me. Catch her. After Brother Bear came to his senses, he cursed and roared. When the dozen or so brothers heard Brother Xiong's roar, they all rushed towards Yun Jian. The door of room 319 had been closed and locked. Needless to say, it was definitely the Mao Doer that Brother Xiong and the others were talking about. Yun Jian lowered her head slightly and saw Duanming sitting dispiritedly on the ground beside the door of room 319. There was no doubt that this was what Duanming had done. Duanming's family was poor, and he was the kind of family that couldn't even support his family. It was precisely because of this that he started to deceive girls, and used his handsome appearance to attract their attention everywhere. Normally, when a girl heard Duanming's request to get a room, she would follow him over. Then Duanming would naturally charm the girl and call out these hooligans from society and sully them. But Wang Kankan liked him, and had even mustered up the courage to confess to him yesterday, saying that she had completely fallen in love with him since junior high school. When Duanming heard Wang Kankan's confession, he thought that Wang Kankan would definitely agree to his request to get a room at the first possible moment. Who would have thought that Wang Kankan wouldn't agree to go at first? Later on, Duanming said that it was just a room, and the two of them wouldn't do anything. Only then did Wang Kankan go to the toilet and get a room with him. What happened next was more or less the same. After Wang Kankan and Duanming went to get a room, Duan Ming used the same method to charm Wang Kankan like how he charmed the other girls, and then attracted these hooligans. Now that their souls had returned to reality, just as Yun Jian walked to the door of room 319, Brother Xiong's group of brothers surrounded Yun Jian. The door of room 319 was locked. Standing there, Yun Jian was like leaning against a wall and being surrounded by these people. Brother Xiong wiped his mouth and chuckled. "Ha, let's see where you can run to now." Without the key to room 319 no one could enter. At least that was what Brother Xiong thought. Everyone present thought the same. Xiao Jian. Lu Fian had witnessed Yun Jian's ability, but she still called out worriedly as she stood outside the circle and watched Yun Jian being surrounded by the crowd. "Of course, I'm going to open the door and escape," Yun Jian said with a light press of her lips. "What did you say? You want to open the door? Ah. Are you stupid or stupid? The door is locked from the inside. You want to open it? Unless you have the ability to pick locks, you're just a young girl. You want to go into the room? Don't be ridiculous. Ah. The door behind you is nothing more than a wall to you. I think you'd better obey us obediently or else." Brother Xiong's mocking tone rang out. His brothers around him guffawed as well. However, at this moment, a crack sound suddenly rang out. Yun Jian flipped her hand and a small blade appeared in it. She inserted the blade into the door lock and turned it gently. The blade was like a key, opening the door of room 319 directly. Brother Xiong and his men were dumbfounded. Brother Xiong, who had been guffawing earlier, was now dumbfounded. His laughter stopped abruptly. She had really opened the hotel door. Did this mean that she really knew how to pick locks? Mao Doer chuckled and leaped towards Wang Kankan, who had collapsed on the floor beside the bed. "Get lost. Scram." Wang Kankan had never thought that she would encounter such a thing. She screamed loudly and waved her hands, trying to wave away Mao Doer's disgusting hands that were covered in black hair. If one were to compare a girl's strength with a man's, there was no doubt that the man's strength was greater. Furthermore, Wang Kankan had taken a knockout drug. Her hands were completely stiff and could not be lifted at all. Mao Doer's dirty hands had already grabbed onto Wang Kankan's clothes, and just as Mao Doer was about to tear Wang Kankan's clothes apart, suddenly Mao Doer was kicked so hard that she fell to the left side of the clothes rack. Wang Kankan had already thought of committing suicide in despair. She had even reached out to grab a glass on the bedside, intending to break the glass and swallow the glass to commit suicide. But Mao Doer was suddenly kicked away, causing Wang Kankan's eyes to widen. In the next second, what entered her eyes was Yun Jian's beautiful and exquisite face. As soon as Yun Jian entered the door, she kicked Mao Doer, who weighed 160 pounds, away. This scene caused Brother Xiong and the others who followed behind to be stunned on the spot. With Mao Doer's weight, even the strongest person in Brother Xiong's group couldn't lift him at all. And the result? This little girl kicked Mao Doer away as soon as she entered the door. She actually kicked Mao Doer away. Chapter 1482. Mao Doer, who had been kicked away, rebounded fiercely and then fell heavily to the ground. This scene once again shocked Brother Xiong and the others. Even Duan Ming and Lu Fian, who had poked their heads in from outside the door, were shocked. Then, the two of them were so shocked that they could not be described with words. Ugh, ugh. Mao Doer, who had been thrown against the wardrobe and then smashed to the ground, retched twice. He almost vomited out his lungs. The entire hotel room was only so big. When Yun Jian walked over, Mao Doer, who had been smashed against the wardrobe and then thrown to the ground, rolled naked into the corridor in front of Yun Jian. Yun Jian walked over and stepped on Mao Doer's abdomen, pushing Mao Doer away once again. Then she walked straight to Wang Kankan, who had fallen to the ground. When she saw that the person who had saved her was Yun Jian, Wang Kankan almost burst into tears, but she still held it in. Yun Jian. A teardrop streaked across Wang Kankan's eyes. It was the kind of fear that came after escaping from death. "I owe you a favor," Yun Jian said indifferently. As she spoke, she flipped her right hand and a dagger immediately appeared in her hand. Yun Jian did not even look at it. She threw the dagger towards the door of the hotel room behind her, which was also where Brother Xiong and the others were. Brother Xiong and the others suddenly saw a dagger fly past their eyes. They were scared out of their wits. They saw the dagger fly straight past the place where Brother Xiong and the others' eyes swept past, and it actually fiercely stabbed into a wooden table at the side. 3 points into the wood. It was nothing more than that. Suddenly seeing this dagger in Yun Jian's hand, she actually stabbed it into a wooden table without even looking at it. The people who were standing in the distance were completely terrified when they saw this scene. She didn't even look at it before stabbing the dagger into the wooden table. 3 points into the wood. If the table was replaced with the heads of everyone present, none of the people present dared to imagine what would happen to them if that were to happen. This little girl was not human at all. She was a devil. That kind of demon that made people panic, surprise, and fear. Get your asses in here. At this moment, Yun Jian bellowed with her back facing Brother Xiong and the others. With this shout, Brother Xiong and his men, who were crowding at the door, hurriedly squeezed into the house. Yun Jian's shout startled Brother Xiong and the others. Then they all swarmed in through the door. Unknowingly, Brother Xiong's group had become so obedient. This scene stunned Duanming, who was paralyzed at the entrance. Every time Brother Xiong and his men appeared in front of him, which one of them wasn't insolent? That arrogant look simply did not treat him, Duanming, as a human being. Every time Duanming tricked a girl as if his entire body had been sucked out of him and was paralyzed at the entrance, Brother Xiong would sprinkle him with 10 or so Grandpa Mao, and then sprinkle Grandpa Mao over his head without treating him as a human at all. Duanming thought that Brother Xiong and his group could be so arrogant in front of anyone. But Duanming was wrong. Yun Jian was just a little girl in her teens, but she had the ability to order Brother Xiong and the others around. She had the strength to make Brother Xiong and his group obey her orders. "Ha sis, do you have any orders for this?" Brother Xiong, who was in high spirits just a moment ago, was now standing in front of Yun Jian like a pug. He looked at Yun Jian and forced out a smile, as if he was afraid of angering Yun Jian. In fact, Yun Jian had only made a few moves, and it was only those few moves that made Brother Xiong and the others feel fear towards Yun Jian from the bottom of their hearts. "Apologize," Yun Jian said softly. Brother Xiong didn't react for a moment. "I told you to apologize." Yun Jian kicked the back of Brother Xiong's knee, causing him to kneel down in front of Wang Kankan. "F***ck, you little doll, you really think you're invincible?" There was a very ugly man on Brother Xiong's side who couldn't stand it anymore. Being bullied by a little girl like this, was this a joke? Just as the man was about to speak, 2 bright blades flew over the man's head and neatly nailed themselves into the wooden wall behind him. Chapter 1483. That blade had flown right over his head. Then it nailed into the wooden wall behind the man. At this moment, the man was so scared that he was completely dumbfounded. He turned around in a daze and looked at the 2 blades that had flown into the wooden wall. His eyes were lifeless. How many years of training would it take to achieve such a superb throwing knife technique? Moreover, did such a throwing knife technique really come from the hands of a young girl in her teens? It seems that all of you are very unconvinced. Then I can only use extreme methods to resolve today's matter. Yun Jian clenched her fists. Her red arc rose, and her entire person was like a god of death from hell, causing people to be terrified. Kacha kacha. Yun Jian clenched her fists and a series of crisp sounds came from the bones of her fingers. This scene scared Brother Xiong out of his wits. He was afraid that he would be implicated, so he shouted at the brothers behind him, "All of you apologize to Laozi. Quick! You bunch of useless pigs." With that, Brother Xiong hurriedly stood up, and then bent down to apologize to Wang Kankan. I apologize. It's all our fault today. It's all our fault. It's our fault. It's our fault. We deserve to die. Damn it." As Brother Xiong spoke, he even stretched out his hand and slapped himself on the face. At the same time, Brother Xiong's attention was always on Yun Jian, as if he was afraid that Yun Jian would kill him. "Scram," Yun Jian said indifferently to Brother Xiong and the others. Then she took off her coat and let Lu Fian drape it over Wang Kankan's body. Hey, we'll scram. Hearing that Yun Jian did not care about this matter, Brother Xiong and the others decided to escape first and come back to settle the score with Yun Jian next time. When they passed by the main entrance, Brother Xiong even pointed at Duanming as if to say, "Just you wait." Wang Kankan did not cry. She was very strong, but she glared fiercely at Senior Duanming who was sitting at the door. Her Senior Duanming, the Senior Duanming she loved the most, was actually that kind of person. Back then she had fallen in love with Duanming because she was in the same school as Duanming in junior high. One time, during physical education class, her ping-pong ball had accidentally fallen into a smelly ditch in the school. Duanming was the only one who saw that she was in trouble and stood up to help her pick up the table tennis ball from the smelly ditch. At that time, Duanming was honest, well-behaved, and excellent in his studies. Wang Kankan silently liked him. When he reached high school, he even deliberately found out from others about the school that Duanming planned to enter, and then secretly entered the same high school as Duanming. However, Wang Kangkan never have imagined that a person's living environment could change a person's mentality. Perhaps in the beginning, Duan Ming was an honest and well-behaved person, but living in a family that didn't even have enough to eat, if there was a job that could let him eat his fill, or even do bad things, Duan Ming would definitely do it without even thinking about it. Kangkan, it's fine. It's fine. Let's go. Lu Fian put on her coat and glared fiercely at Wang Kangkan, who was on top of Duan Ming at the entrance. She reached out and hugged Wang Kangkan, patted Wang Kangkan's back lightly and whispered a few words. I'll send you back to school. Yun Jian had already retracted the dagger and throwing knife that she had thrown out. These daggers and throwing knives could be recycled and reused. She didn't have the habit of sticking these daggers and throwing knives into wooden stools and tables and then throwing them away. Chapter 1484. Yun Jian did not understand Wang Kangkan's feelings, nor did she know how to comfort him. In the end, she left after sending Wang Kangkan and LV Fian to school. Before she left, LV Fian thanked Yun Jian on behalf of the groggy Wang Kangkan. Xiao Jian, today is really... I don't know what to do if it wasn't for you, as long as he's fine, Yun Jian replied. I'll help Kangkan back to his dorm then. Drive slowly when you get back later. Don't get caught by the traffic police. LV Fian reminded softly as Yun Jian was an underage driver. Yun Jian nodded and returned to her Lamborghini sports car. She only left when she saw LV Fian helping Wang Kangkan into the school gate. On her way home, she received a call from Su Zetian. Yun Jian was now developing her legitimate business and mafia business. Her legitimate business was New Cruise while her mafia business was Falcon Hall. Su Zetian and Zhang Jifan were the spokespersons for Falcon Hall and New Cruise respectively. Without Yun Jian around, Falcon Hall and New Cruise were supported by them. Su Zetian called to say that he had found out about the mafia that He Long and Qi Shangjin were in. Zhang Jifan came over to report to Yun Jian about New Cruise's recent sales trend as well. Ding ding bar, wait for me at the usual spot. Yun Jian told Su Zetian and hung up the phone. She stepped on the accelerator and turned her sports car toward Ding Ding Bar. 13 minutes later, they arrived at the entrance of Ding Ding Bar. Ding Ding Bar was already crowded during the day. Due to its recent popularity in Longmen City, Ding Ding Bar was crowded during the day. When it was night time, people from the night market would usually come to Ding Ding Bar. Recently, the other bars were not doing well in terms of sales. Only Ding Ding Bar's income was on the rise. This also showed that most of the people who came to nightclubs would choose Ding Ding Bar. In fact, there was another important reason for Ding Ding Bar's booming business. It was because Ding Ding Bar occupied a large area, about a quarter of the size of a school. Bars were usually only the size of a few rooms, but Ding Ding Bar was different. It was more than 10 times bigger than an average bar. Big investment, big return. The investment in Ding Ding Bar was high. It looked luxurious, but the consumption was similar to ordinary bars. Naturally, many people came. Some people thought of this, but they couldn't afford to invest. Naturally, they couldn't compete with Ding Ding Bar. At that time, Yun Jian had already arrived inside Ding Ding Bar. Yun Jian passed through countless private rooms and headed towards the VIP room in the corner. When they passed by a private room with its door open, Yun Jian could hear the noise of countless people inside, but she could still hear an obvious conversation in the private room. F***CK. I really don't know what kind of bad luck I have today. To think that he would meet such a terrifying woman. F***CK, I'm going to F***CK her to death. I'm not convinced. Yo, Brother Bear, what kind of person can make you so angry? Listening to your tone, could it be that the person was a woman? Why don't we brothers go a few rounds and F***CK her to death? We have hundreds of brothers here. Are you afraid that we can't F***CK a woman to death? We'll definitely vent our anger. If I meet her now, I'll beat her until she kneels down and begs me to F***CK her. Ha ha ha. When a group of men gathered together, it wasn't surprising that they liked to talk dirty. Yun Jian was just passing by, but her ears were sharp. The words, Brother Bear, made her raise her eyebrows slightly. Of course, Yun Jian didn't dodge on purpose. She walked directly through the door of the private room. It happened to be the trace of Brother Bear's disgusting obscenities. Brother Bear had been saying, F***CK, but when he saw Yun Jian appear in front of him naked, his face instantly darkened. She's the terrifying woman who made us apologize just now. Brother Bear saw that Yun Jian's eyes were on the road ahead and not looking into the private room at the entrance, so she did not hear him telling his other buddy that he would beat her until she kneeled and begged him to F***CK her the next time he saw her. It was an extremely perverted threat. In the end, before Yun Jian could even make her way over, one of his slow-witted brothers actually bellowed at the sight of her. This roar made Brother Bear tremble with fear. Brother Bear had always been afraid of Yun Jian from the bottom of his heart. Although he wanted to take revenge, now wasn't the time. When Brother Bear's stupid brother roared, Yun Jian, who was about to ignore him and walk over, turned around. Her pure and beautiful appearance shocked everyone present. Chapter 1485. When Yun Jian glanced over, Brother Xiong and the rest who had seen Yun Jian's skills before were so frightened that their faces changed. The men who were discussing with Brother Xiong and the rest had not seen Yun Jian's skills. Now that they saw Yun Jian standing at the entrance and saw that Yun Jian was such a beautiful young lady, all of them started whistling. Oh my, such a beautiful young lady. Brother Xiong, are you sure this young lady is the one who is so powerful that she could subdue all of you by herself? One of the men whistled and walked towards Yun Jian. Then he stood not far away and looked at Yun Jian for a long time before he finally asked. Such a beautiful young lady. Even I want to woo her and make her my girlfriend. Brother Xiong, no wonder you wanted to beat her up and made her beg you to F***CK her. Ah. That was not all. The man who was whistling stared at Yun Jian's perfect face for a long time before he finally spoke. Brother Xiong was a little afraid that Yun Jian would make a move. However, he suddenly thought about it. This was a nightclub. This was the territory of these gang members. Moreover, today was Brother Xiong's gang's gathering. The gang leader had booked more than 10 private rooms. Now all the people in the surrounding rooms were his brothers. There should be at least a few hundred people in this group. A few hundred people. Could it be that he, Brother Xiong, had to be afraid of Yun Jian, this stupid woman? From the looks of it, he should let this woman lick his knees today. Just now, she actually wanted him, Brother Xiong, to kneel down to Wang Kankan and apologize by slapping himself. If he did not take revenge for this, his name would be written in reverse. Yun Jian looked up slightly at the room. She did not care about the gazes and comments of outsiders. Otherwise, just based on her identity as the #1 secret agent in her previous life, how many people would look at her and gossip about her? Back then, there were even people who said that Yun Jian knew Hun's leader. Then they said that she knew Hun's leader. The reason why she could sit at the top of the international secret agent ranking was all because she opened her legs and served Hun's leader. Although she had met CE after her rebirth, she had relied entirely on her own abilities to climb up to that throne. She had not relied on anyone else. As the saying goes, it's up to you to decide what others say. You just have to walk your own path. Therefore, after hearing what these people said, Yun Jian decided to ignore them and walk forward. But just as Yun Jian took 2 steps forward and was about to ignore Brother Xiong and the others, Brother Xiong's roar rang out in time. Stop. It is you. Stop right there. You still haven't settled the score between us. You want to leave? No way. The reason why Brother Xiong suddenly became so arrogant was because over 100 people from his gang were gathered here. Could Yun Jian withstand the attacks of hundreds of people by herself? Oh, he didn't believe it. Yun Jian raised her eyebrows slightly and turned around. Originally he thought that Brother Xiong and his group had already learned their lesson, but he didn't expect them to still be so stubborn. What? Yun Jian crossed her arms in front of her chest. Her frail body looked rather frail, but when she turned around her sharp eyes seemed to be able to kill everyone present. Brother Xiong was so frightened by her sharp eyes that his body trembled violently. However, Brother Xiong still calmed himself down and pretended to be very calm as he looked at Yun Jian. I want you to apologize to us. Hee, otherwise I will let you die a horrible death. Chapter 1486. Let me die a horrible death? Yun Jian seemed to have heard something interesting as she stopped and looked up at Brother Xiong and the rest, her tone tinged with interest. Don't think that I'm afraid of a little girl like you. I'm from the Nine Valleys gang. Our brothers are gathering here today. There are hundreds of us. If you know what's good for you, you'd better apologize quickly or else. How about I strip you naked and let all our brothers here enjoy you? Brother Xiong was quite afraid of Yun Jian in the beginning, but he was no longer afraid of Yun Jian when he saw that he had the upper hand. He revealed his trump card openly and waited for Yun Jian to beg for mercy. Brother Xiong thought that Yun Jian would be frightened by his words or kneel down and beg for mercy like he did earlier. He could then do whatever he wanted to Yun Jian and the rest. Yun Jian did not. Yun Jian remained with her arms crossed as she looked at Brother Xiong and the rest with interest. They were from the Nine Valleys gang. It piqued Yun Jian's interest. The Nine Valleys gang was the second largest gang in Longmen City. When Dragon Head Gang, also known as Falcon Hall, was still in Su Ziqian's hands, the Nine Valleys gang's influence had almost surpassed Dragon Head Gang. Since Yun Jian took over Dragon Head Gang and changed its name to Falcon Hall had become the biggest gang in Jia province. What was the Nine Valleys gang? They might have some status in Longmen City, but to Yun Jian's Falcon Hall, they were nothing more than a speck of dust that could not be bothered to clean up. It was only when Brother Xiong mentioned the Nine Valleys gang today that Yun Jian suddenly realized that there was a gang called the Nine Valleys gang in Longmen City. Seeing that Yun Jian did not speak, Brother Xiong paused and added, Why aren't you afraid? Why should I be afraid? Yun Jian simply walked in through the door of the private room. She randomly picked a leather sofa and sat down. Then she propped her chin up with her elbow and sneered at Brother Xiong. Seeing that Yun Jian was so lazy as if she was at home, Brother Bear was very unhappy. However, just looking at Yun Jian's delicate face made Brother Bear's heart itch even more. Did you not hear it or did you not notice it? The people in the private rooms nearby are all brothers of the Nine Valleys gang. There are over 100 of them. You're a little girl, aren't you afraid? Besides, the Nine Valleys gang is Longmen City's second largest gang. Are you really not afraid? I don't believe it. Big Brother Bear purposely emphasized the name of the Nine Valleys gang. Normally, when a girl heard that he was from a gang, her face would turn pale with fright. But when Yun Jian heard about the Nine Valleys gang, she heard that Brother Xiong and the others were from the same gang. It was as if he hadn't heard anything. Nine Valleys gang. Yun Jian suddenly called out softly. Hearing Yun Jian mention the Nine Valleys gang, Brother Bear thought that Yun Jian must be afraid, so he lifted his head and said proudly. That's right. I'm from the Nine Valleys gang. I should say that all of our brothers here are from the Nine Valleys gang. So, are you scared now? If you are, take off your clothes obediently. If you serve us well today, I'll let you go. Otherwise, just as Brother Bear said that, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and smirked. Nine Valleys gang, I almost forgot that there's a second gang in Longmen City, the Nine Valleys gang. I'd really like to know why you Nine Valleys gang members are here for a gathering at Falcon Hall's bar instead of your own bar. Falcon Hall's wine bar. Yun Jian's words stunned Brother Bear and the others. Could this young girl Yun Jian be from Falcon Hall? Chapter 1487. Yun Jian's words sent Brother Xiong and the rest into a frenzy. Before they could say anything, however, Yun Jian's voice rang again. Thanks for the reminder. There's still a Nine Valleys gang in Longmen City, but you won't live past tomorrow. A mountain could not accommodate two tigers. Yun Jian's vision had never been limited to Longmen City. Back when Qin Sini was kidnapped, Yun Jian had gone to the Nine Valleys gang's boss Yuan Shuxiao. This was because Yuan Shuxiao's sister Yuan Xiaoyu was the one who knew about the incident back then, or perhaps she was the one who plotted it. Yun Jian did not pursue the matter, but it did not mean that she did not remember it. She simply did not expect a gang like the Nine Valleys gang to exist in Longmen City. It was not too late to think about it now though. What do you mean? Do you know what position the Nine Valleys gang has in Longmen City? We're the second largest gang in Longmen City. Do you believe that I'll kill both of you? Although Brother Xiong and the rest were taken aback by Yun Jian's Falcon Hall, they doubted the meaning behind Yun Jian's words. Could it be that Yun Jian was someone in Falcon Hall? Thinking about it, how could a young girl who looked around 16 years old join a gang like Falcon Hall? Brother Xiong and the rest did not intend to join the Nine Valleys gang. They had chosen to join the Nine Valleys gang because they could not join Falcon Hall. To Brother Xiong and the rest, Falcon Hall's members were strictly vetted. They were not allowed to steal, rob, do anything illegal or collect protection fees. In short, those who joined Falcon Hall had to be honest and upright. They were not allowed to do anything illegal. This was not something a gang member should do. Thinking about it, even if Yun Jian was a member of Falcon Hall, she must be an insignificant person with no name or status. How could Falcon Hall implicate the Nine Valleys gang because of such a nobody? It was impossible to think about it with one's brain, so Brother Xiong was not afraid of Yun Jian at all. He even thought that Yun Jian was spouting nonsense. Could it be that she was afraid of them, so she decided to pretend to be from Falcon Hall so that she could scare them and take the opportunity to escape? The more Brother Bear thought about it, the more he felt that this was the case. He rubbed his hands together and felt that instead of enjoying Wang Can, it was better to have Yun Jian. Just thinking about it made Brother Xiong feel that his lower body was already swollen. He rubbed his hands and walked over to Yun Jian. Little beauty, just give in to me. It's not like you'll lose a piece of meat. As soon as he finished speaking, Yun Jian's expression changed. She stood up and kicked Brother Xiong away. Then she looked coldly at the crowd and said softly, "Tell Yuan Suxiao to get in front of me." Is this how he has been teaching his gang members to run amok for the past half a year? Yuan Shuxiao was the boss of Longmen City's second mafia group, the Nine Valleys gang. He was present when Yun Jian killed Wolf Blade, who was ranked top 10 in the assassin ranking. Do you really know our boss? Brother Bear, who was sent flying by Yun Jian's kick, only came to his senses after a long while. He clutched his chest at once and stared at Yun Jian blankly, asking in fear. Brother Xiong's brothers around him were slightly stunned as well. It was obvious that if Yun Jian really knew their boss, everyone present would be doomed. If Yun Jian was a relative or friend of their gang's leader, it would be even more plausible. Brother Xiong was slightly scared. It was then that a steady silhouette came through the door with a group of people following behind him. Boss? The people in the room were shocked when they saw Yuan Suxiao walking in from outside the room. Speak of the devil and he will appear. Boss. Here, there's a crazy young lady here who asked you to get in front of her. Once Brother Xiong heard that his boss was here, he scrambled over, thinking that he had to criticize Yun Jian in front of Yuan Suxiao as soon as possible. Hearing that someone wanted him to get in front of her, Yuan Suxiao was slightly taken aback before he turned to look at Yun Jian. Even after half a year, Yuan Suxiao could still recognize the girl in front of him at first glance. Was she not the young lady who killed Wolf Blade, who ranked 10th on the assassin ranking all by herself? She was also. Chapter 1488. Yuan Shuxiao and the rest of them did not know that Ding Ding Bar was Falcon Hall's property. It was not a secret, of course. No one in the know had revealed it, so it was only natural that outsiders would not know about it. As the boss of Longmen City's second largest mafia group, the Nine Valleys gang, Yuan Shuxiao did not inquire about who owned Ding Ding Bar. Ding Ding Bar's performance was astounding, monopolizing the nightclub business in Longmen City. Although there were outsiders who were interested in the person behind Ding Ding Bar and wanted to get to the bottom of the matter, no one could find out anything about the founder of Ding Ding Bar. Therefore, it was not surprising that Yuan Shuxiao wondered why Yun Jian was here. Yun Jian was Falcon Hall's boss after all. Why would she be here? Yuan Suxiao's greeting of Falcon Hall's boss stunned Brother Xiong and the others. Falcon Hall's boss? Oh, Could it be that the person who called her Falcon Hall's boss was this young girl who looked delicate and pretty with a hint of brashness? Brother Xiong and the rest turned to look at Yun Jian. Her mouth opened and widened at a speed everyone could see clearly until she could not close it. Are you saying, yes, this girl is Falcon Hall's BB boss? Brother Xiong asked Yuan Shuxiao in shock as he gaped at Yun Jian. Yun Jian was Falcon Hall's boss? This girl who was not even 18 yet was Falcon Hall's boss? What kind of joke was this? Go away. What girl? Don't talk nonsense. This is Falcon Hall's boss, slaying Luo. Yuan Shuxiao slapped Brother Xiong away when he heard the question and went to Yun Jian, like he was waiting for Yun Jian's reply. Brother Xiong and the rest were so scared that their faces turned pale. They stood there in a daze. He had thought that Yun Jian was just an ordinary girl and even had the thought of taking Yun Jian as any other girl and forcefully possessing her. Who would have thought, Yun Jian? Falcon Hall's boss, slaying Luo? This little girl was actually the boss of Falcon Hall. She really was from Falcon Hall. They had offended the boss of Falcon Hall. The faces of Brother Xiong and the others darkened as if they had just eaten dog shit. Everyone in the room was stunned. Everyone stared at Yun Jian, who was standing in front of Yuan Shuxiao. Although she looked petite, her aura was so strong that no one could look at her directly. That was Longmen City's legend. That was Falcon Hall's boss, Rakshasa. That was a 16-year-old girl in the prime of her youth. Even Yuan Shuxiao had to lower his head slightly in front of Yun Jian. In terms of aura, Yuan Shuxiao had no choice but to submit. At this moment, there was only silence in the boisterous bar. Everyone was looking at Yun Jian in a daze. Even Yuan Shuxiao was no exception.